Hello, the following recording is of the Artist Feedback AMA session featuring open genre photography and held in the MetaJungle Discord on September 23rd. This particular session was hosted by Mike Schmidt and Dan Hawk. It was great to have our OG hosts back together. We want to say a big thank you to all the artists who submitted their work for review, and we hope that this information will help lead you to having a more successful NFT collection, focusing on topics such as curation, descriptions, and also what collectors may be looking for. So we hope you enjoy this recording and find it very helpful.
Well,
Very cool.
I'll just say something right off the bat, because we just started recording. I am super stoked to be here, be back. I have taken kind of a hiatus from the feedback AMAs because I got a job. I got a real job, and before that I was a freelance photographer full time. Now I'm kind of trying to balance some travel and still doing some freelance. And so I was pretty stoked when Mike said, "Hey, who from our crew wants in on this?" And I was like, "I have some time in my schedule, so let's do this."
That's awesome. I'm really glad to have you back, because we've done so many together and they've been some really epic ones. And uh, it's the original OG host and co-host crew. So, but I'm really glad to hear about all your success outside through Sony and working with them and helping people with the systems and helping the Pacific Northwest. It's a really awesome accomplishment, and I could pick your brain now that I'm a Sony user, and it's yeah, it's really cool to just be around and see people's movement and career through what they've done and where they are now, the successes of that. So it's great to have you back here with us, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, I think it's good to, I know this isn't really feedback about photos, but I think it's just good to realize that there's seasonality to everything. And so I have three teenagers. My first one just moved off to college, and earlier this year, my wife and I were talking about it, and it's like it was great for me to be home, especially during the pandemic, to help manage the at-home learning with my kids. But my I only have one in normal school. I've got one away at university, and I've got one at community college. So it's sort of I was kind of getting bored a little bit. I wasn't busy enough, and then you got a kid going to college, so we've got some more expenses. So I said, might be time for a regular paycheck again. And right at that moment, I had a friend reach out and go, "Hey, are you interested or do you know anybody who's interested in being the tech rep for Sony?" And I said, "Oh yeah, me for sure. That's me." So
Awesome. That's awesome that you got that. And and you're talking about like times changing and stuff like that too. And so we see that we don't have that many people in the Discord today. And so maybe there's an idea of moving possibly the AMAs to a Twitter chat space where there's larger eyes on it. And it's not we wouldn't be able to share screens, but we would be able to have people that had put in submissions that we could have on the speaker panel, and we could sort of pull up their work while we're in the Twitter chat space and talk about it there, and then hear directly from them. That might be something that I could talk to Emma about.
yeah, well, I think that's the good thing is to think about. I think people have kind of changed. I think people are changing how they use Discord. I think that's part of it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that's I think that's a good idea. Just kind of think about how does this thing evolve? And it's weird too. This will be interesting to look through the work that we're going to see today because when we first started doing this at the end of last year, what I don't remember when it was. Was it like November, or October, maybe December? Um,
Like
back
eight or 9 months ago. It's like
Yeah,
eight or
and
yeah.
back then we were so focused on, collections on OpenSea. That's kind of where everything was, and nobody was really releasing one of one standalone work at all, and nobody was really doing editions. So we've kind of evolved along those lines. It'll be interesting to see what this work is like today.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. So I mean, so the first one that was submitted was Rocketry, and this is by Sasikaran Vals, and he submitted it as Rocketry and gave this link, but it's actually in a collection called Free Soul Dreamer, which I think we can talk about, but let's start with the one that he wanted to speak about here. So Rocketry, let's look at the description. So I always want my viewers to interpret a picture from their own perspective. For it's a black and white creation from my heart that I visualize in my heart, trying to represent it as an image. This is a jet aircraft moving fast, passing through dramatic clouds, diving it. This is going to dive the clouds. So let's take a look. The buy now is 0.35 E as a reserve, which Foundation has now that you can have a buy it now and you can have a reserve if an auction happens to kick off. And so let's take a look at the image, and really cool monochromatic image here of this. Like I've seen these shots before with these planes that do these dives, but it's really cool to see like this like straight up the center sort of composition through these dynamic clouds. My personal like technical thing for me would be not technical, but like I would like me personally, I would probably try to bring out the line of the aircraft, especially from down here. Like maybe that is like a local adjustment of like punching the like whites in just in that area ever so slightly, just to bring out the trails a bit more. Do you have any comments on that?
You know, I was kind of thinking something similar. First of all, I really like the tonality. I think that this is, um, having done. It's been a while since I've done black and white. I don't really create a lot of black and white work, but I love how dramatically you can showcase things by pulling the saturation of the colors back, and I kind of my gut on this is I really like it. I would like to see those jet trails be a little bit brighter. Yeah, I think I think that would make it a little bit more powerful.
Yeah, especially towards the bottom where it kind of starts to fade out and become part of the clouds. If there was like a bit of separation where the line's coming, like you can tell that the line goes straight down to the bottom. But if it was just a little bit more pronounced, it might even be more. And that just goes with just experimenting with like editing a bit. But overall, I really definitely like the image, and I think it's a fair price for Foundation. So I think it's really good.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
let's take a
Well, I
jump back.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just gonna say one more thing is that I think with this one, when you get into this kind of tonality and how you're going to edit this, for me, it feels like maybe the way to do that would be this is probably a curves adjustment would be how you would isolate just that white of the jet trails.
Is that like an S curves adjustment?
Yeah, yeah. So I think this is one of those things I've kind of for a long time I didn't really use curves. I mean, I used them a little bit, but what I found is that you know how like you can pull back or you can mess with the highlight slider, right?
Hmm.
Just the main highlight slider in a app like Lightroom. But I found that if you use the highlights slider in the curves curve section of Lightroom, you have a little more control over just the
Highlights.
just the high end of the highlights. It
Wow.
boosts a little more of the highest luminance range. The other thing you can do is you could go into the HSL area and then use the eyedropper to click on just the whitest part of those trails, and then you could boost the luminance.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, luminance is the tool that adjusts from the lightness of it to the brightness. I mean, the kind of the darker, muted to the brighter version of it. Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's saturation, there's hue, and there's luminance. And saturation punches or desaturates colors, and hue, specifically, if you choose, like, let's say blue, for instance, and you pull, if we're talking about a color image, and you pull the hues from blue to the left, you'll get a lighter looking blue, like more of a sky blue, whereas in the center would be more of like a Smurf blue, right? And so how does that relate to black and white when you're pulling color slider? Does it affect the black and white image if the black and white image was rawly taken as a color image? Would it
Oh
affect
yeah.
it?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm,
So that's one of those. So when you see an image like this, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the way that those blacks are just, really deep and have all this. They have a lot of depth and texture in there, and to me, it feels like the blacks in like an Ansel Adams print, and
yeah.
I think what for one, the way that he did that was using color filters, but you can mimic that in an editing app with digital photos by pulling the saturation of different colors, and it does the same thing digitally as putting a color filter over the front of your lens when you're shooting film.
Awesome. Do you think the best editing for black and white is through Lightroom or something like, have you heard of Nick software, Silver Effects Pro?
I have, yeah. I haven't really used it that much. I used Capture One some, but I haven't in a while. I'm kind of boring because I generally just stick with Lightroom for almost all of
Mm,
my editing, and then I'll pull it into Photoshop if I need to. But for a black and white image like this I would just do this in Lightroom, and I might use some presets on the when I'm editing, because I've got a few different things I've built over the years, and I even have a couple panel things that I've bought from other artists. But
mhm.
this doesn't feel like it's very presetty. It just feels like he's done a bunch of good work with the HSL sliders is what it feels like to me.
I do the same thing with I sort of move through the presets till I find something that has the mood of the image that I want, and then I do my adjustments from that preset a lot of times. So makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
Oh,
Cool.
cool. No, it's a good. This is a good photo. One thing that I was kind of curious about, just from if I'm thinking about, did he have feedback he was asking for?
I didn't get to all the specific. I can pull up. Let's see. I'll pull up
I
the
mean,
meta.
I think it might be good to just. It's always good to know what it looks like in context. So I'm gonna click on in my own browser and see where it fits. So he's got it inside of a collection on Foundation, that's
Yeah.
called Free Soul Dreamer. And it's
Uh,
all
you know,
it's good to know what the context is like, you know.
yeah, because I selected it as a selection and I exited the Excel sheet. I can't get the question. I'm probably almost more than certain that we've talked about price. We've talked about the image itself, the possible editing that we probably covered most of it. It's in a collection called Free Soul Dreamer that has four other pieces. If we wanted to touch on that quickly, we probably could.
One thing I'll mention is this is just it's always good to kind of understand where it came from and what's happening. So when I look at this particular piece of work, um, it is 0.35, zero point 0.3. I tend to kind of like to choose one or the other, and I know that it costs money to add the buy now and to add the reserve. Um, I think these are so close that I don't know that there's an advantage here to having both. My advice would probably be pick one or the other. Um, I think it and
Yeah,
this is
I like
based
the
on.
buy it now. I like the buy it now option better because I think placing bid had kept a lot of collectors from buying on Foundation initially because they didn't know they were actually going to get the piece and people want the piece right then and there and then they have to wait for the auction to go for 24. So I kind of like the buy it now option, but that's
Sure.
just me.
One, and I
Mhm.
feel like, especially at this kind of a price, the buy now I think makes sense. And I also feel that when you were a little bit newer, and I'm guessing you are based on, I haven't looked at the artist's other work on other platforms, but when I look at the work here on Foundation, I'm not seeing a lot of sales, and so um, what I feel like the buy now is more powerful when you don't have a lot of sales, because it allows people to just kind of jump in, and these prices are all really reasonable. You know, I can see Tech Bubble bought one for 0.15 already.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I saw that.
and so yeah, kind of my gut would be I'd say get, if you're gonna do auctions, commit to it. But know that that might mean that it sells at a low price, and it might mean that you turn off some collectors. But I think that a lot of the higher end collectors who are a little more experienced are going to be doing some of the, on Foundation. They prefer auctions as opposed to buy it nows. That's what I'm seeing, and I could be
Mm.
wrong. If you're
No, it's yeah, you might be right. I haven't paid too much attention to like what's really going on and happening on Foundation, and I might mint a one-on-one in there
Yeah. As somebody
soon.
who, I haven't sold a ton of work on Foundation, but I have never sold a buy it now on Foundation.
Yeah,
And I said the same thing.
I've sold one and that's it. But looking at their Twitter, I can't even find that image. So I'm just looking in media too. Um, so yeah, I mean it's a little more like maybe like write a little. Well, I did find it here. Hold on, my collections at Foundation. Interesting, and then it doesn't seem like, well, you should have probably provided the link down here. It just doesn't seem like the artist has that much reach, right? So they only have 803 followers, but even me right now with like 15.5K, like I'm still getting some of my posts that look like this too at this level of engagement. That's just a sign of the times, and uh, it is what it is, right?
Yeah. So in terms of feedback on what to do, I feel like there's this is solid work. I feel like this is a little bit of a departure from the other work. You know, if you look at the other black and white that's shown right up on the main page, it has kind of a sepia tone vibe. It's a little different looking. Um,
Mm-hmm. This
if
one
I
here,
Yeah,
Phoenix Rising. This
yeah,
is actually in the same collection. So let's go to Free Soul Dreamer. Yeah, this is actually the same collection. So, um, Free Soul Dreamer. Like, what's the description of the actual? These creations are representations of the struggles, emotions of different cultures, faces, behaviors, habitat. That doesn't make sense to the airplane shot, though, does it? Right?
right.
Struggles, emotions, and different cultures. So it's kind of like if you it the collection in itself, I'll just talk about this really quickly, doesn't make sense as a collection itself. Maybe if we're just looking at like these three images, but this image in a sense, it doesn't necessarily hold the same I guess vibe as these.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And it doesn't mean it's not cool. It just means this is one of those things that, I mean, this is going back to all the stuff we talked about, 9, 10 months ago. What you're looking at here, what we're trying to point out is that when a collector comes and visits your profile and they come to your Foundation page, there needs to be a coherence that makes sense to them, where they can look at it and go, okay, when I buy a piece of this art, I know I'm buying something that has there's a consistency in your work. And that would be my one thing here, is that I'm seeing a bunch of really beautiful pictures, but I feel like you either need a better story for what's going on in the collection, or you maybe need to call back a little bit on some of this stuff. And let me just say one thing that's kind of a no-brainer, sort of. Not, it's not a no-brainer, but it's something to talk about. Oh, and I actually really like that one.
Me too. Yeah, me too. It's just a lot of them feel as they fit as sort of one of ones, because that
Yeah,
that shot and then bokeh. This one just it this would make sense in a collection that's all about sort of blurred out bokeh background
yeah,
stuff, something more abstract, and then you have you know and I would definitely work on the titles too, to feel a little bit more poetic or something, and not so direct as to like what you're telling us to see
yeah.
or what it's about.
Well, something else. This is a little bit. This is kind of talking nuts and bolts a little bit about how these things work. I think it's good to understand that when you mint work these are ERC 721 tokens, and we know that because Foundation only shows that type of token. So ERC 721 is all that Foundation works with. So when we look at these, if they show up in a collection together on Foundation, that means one thing. It means you minted them in the same contract, right?
Yes.
Um, I think that, and this is a little bit tricky because you have to kind of think about it ahead of time. You need to be thoughtful about what contract you're using, and that the contract makes sense. It makes sense for all the work to be together. Now, here's one thing you can do: is on Foundation you can edit the collection description. So you might want to go back and say, hey, these are all standalones. They are not part of a cohesive collection. And I think that's a fair thing to do. It is okay to have a collection,
Yes.
just a bunch of standalones. And I do that myself. Um, and then I also have other collections that are only, kind of themed, if that kind of
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. If you look on my object right now, and I go to my profile, so this, my collection, it just says one of one street photography by Mike Schmidt. And so I just have some stuff in here.
Yeah.
I did have one collected for 1100 Tez, which is cool. I stuck to my my prices even on object.
That's very
Well, the prices that I think that my works were. But yeah, I just made a collection called One of One Street Photography, and it's clear that they're just one of ones. In this collection, you'll find photographs listed as one of one on the Tesla's blockchain, and I'm not saying that they are that they work together, but I also kind of do try to show my style. If you can see that here, like I am still trying to show a style at least
yeah.
through these images that it feels like it could be from the same artist. So I
Yeah.
want to bring that
If there
up.
was
So
anything from that feedback that I would be hoping that people would take away from it, it's that you should really think in advance about what you're putting out together. What your work is going to show up as a body of work. You need to
mhm,
think about, do you want this to live in the same place as, you know, the your other the photo glitter on? Do those belong in the same place?
absolutely. And
That's
so yeah, and so talking about this, I think the next collection is actually a good segue to which is Two Wheels, and this is by Emery Bastonoglu, and
cool. I
this
like
is
the work.
yeah, this is a collection that's all about travel on bike. So whether we live in big cities or live in rural villages, there are some difficulties in life. The most important of these is undoubtedly the transportation and traffic problem. Bicycle is an important means of transportation as well as being a fun sporting tool. Some use the two-wheel vehicle for transportation, some for sports, and some for fun. Of course, leaving a motor vehicle and riding a bicycle is important for our nature, but in fact, the bicycle has an important place in our inner journey as well. These words of Ernest Hemingway on the importance of bicycle are my guide. It's by riding a bicycle that you learn the contours of a country best, since you have to sweat up the hills and coast down them. Thus, you remember them as they actually are. While in a motor car, only a high hill impresses you, and you have no such accurate remembrance of a country you have driven through as you gain by riding. So this artist statement is like really well written. I love the first part he wrote himself, and then also how this like Ernest Hemingway quote really relates to that. And then if you go into the collection and just looking at it from afar, this all feels like it should be together, right? Like
Yep.
it's just yeah.
Yeah,
And
this is great. I also love that there are a few that they kind of feel like, as much as there's a broad range of things in here, because hey, there's tulips, you know there's stone buildings, but then there's also a few of these that have a vibe, right? You've got these golden
mhm.
sunset ones that I think I like, that they're all they're kind of calling on the same silhouette tools.
Yeah. Yeah, like this one's really beautiful, like this far away shot where when the birds really add that extra element, I feel like that this photo needed. Like without the birds, it would be really good, but with the birds, it's really great. Thanks.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and then looking at another one that has that kind of warm tone, the shot is really, really cool. Like, and once again, you know, the bicycle off to the left in this triangle here is great, but had it not had also this man walking in perfect strut in this triangle here, this is, I think, what brings something from really good to really great. So it's another one.
I will just say I think that one is probably my favorite in the collection.
Yeah, it's this one for me, where it's actually this tulips one, because the
Yeah,
perspective is
good.
just so dreamy and kind of otherworldly, and the composition is great too. So between the two of those, there's really something happening for me.
Yeah. One, I think it's telling that he used the bridge one as the header hero image for the collection.
Let me see that. Yeah, he did. So yeah,
These
so
are beautiful. I'll just say this: I really I like the collection. I don't think there's anything in here that I would remove. I mean, it's on Slica. You really can't. They're what they are. But I think that they all work well. They all have a good place in here. The description makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I like it.
yeah, it's hard to give any like feedback on constructive feedback on like what I would do differently, because this is probably how I would put a collection together like this as well. I mean, he has silhouettes. He has environmental portraits. He has panning. He has like low perspectives, far away perspectives, and head on perspectives, and then even a shot like this, which I really really like too, where it's just like just leading into us, and the colors are just gorgeous, really. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those collections, I pick as like a sort of a model collection in a way that I think everything is done really well. I think the pricing is done really well. There's only one collected to Two Wheels #5, so would love to get more eyes on this beautiful collection. So
Yeah.
it,
Well, and I will say Emery has some. He's got a decent following on Twitter. Um, when I kind of look through here, it's he's got, and one of the things that's I think good to know is he has some other work that leans into these same themes. He's got those sunsets are he's got a
yeah.
whole he's got a whole series over on OpenSea that has that vibe that's almost sold out.
Yeah, he's a hardworking photographer and a great storyteller. You could tell that he's out there pushing boundaries and shooting a lot, and he's been doing it for quite some time. You can tell. I don't even know how long he's been shooting for, but you can tell that he's been doing it for quite some time because the trained eye that's in this work. So yeah, I don't think we need to even take up any more time on this
Okay.
collection. Actually, it just needs more eyes.
Yep,
Cool.
exactly. Well, and I think that's one of the things that we do need. That's one of the things that's it's good for us to kind of talk about as we're going through these is that the fundamental struggle here. Once you are taking photos that you're proud of and that have, and if you're able to get it to work and you're able to have a cohesive vision for what you're doing, well, now you got to get it in front of people. And I think there's that's the endless conversation. That's the thing that we could keep talking about all day long. Is how do you get
Absolutely.
your work?
Yeah, and I mean, you could still get it in front of some people in the market. Could just be just soft enough to where they're not going to pick up the pieces. But there is a collector, I'm sure, that's eyeing a piece in here that they're waiting to collect for the right time, and it's probably just a patience thing. This is a phenomenal collection. So very cool. I'm very impressed with it. So with that, I think we can move on to
Yeah.
the next collection, which is Walk With Me by Homan. And I have seen this collection in the past. And so take a look at, before we even look at into the work. Okay, so Walk With Me is a collection of photos that shows the street life of different cities, from Iranian cities to European cities. It's a collection I want to show people from different cities that I lived or traveled to. I want you all to see the way that I look at the world, and I want you all to talk to people in the photo, through my photos. Every time I will drop 9 photos. I hope you all enjoy them as much as I enjoy taking them. So how many photos are in here now? Is it 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? I think he's trying to say if 9 sell out, then he'll drop another. But if we look at the activity, um, last sale was 8 months ago, and both these sales are actually on this man, Iron Man, in the collection. And so the only sold pieces are of this man, tattoos. And looking at this from an overall thing, just from a slide like this, here's something really cool you can change now in here. Check. Did you know you could do that on Foundation?
Yeah, I actually was just tinkering with it myself. That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool that you could see it like this. But you know, so since the only ones that did sell are the ones of this man, I would probably structure the collection around that idea. Or maybe the collection is just the two of that man, and then you can just keep it as like a collection that's done and sold out. Because outside of that, like I just don't understand how a photo like American in Paris, like this shot, OpenSea's taking longer to load than Object, and Foundation for me. But yeah, this American in Paris shot, like it's this feels just more like a shot that was taken during an event that was happening. And I don't think that it's constructed as well as some of the other images as far as composition goes, and like what actually is the subject. It is If the subject is this man here, then the people that play a part behind him don't really add to that story for me. I think it's maybe if it was shot at a different depth of field, where just the man and the two flags were in focus and everything else was sort of muted out, it would make more sense as an image for me. But it feels like there's a few different kinds of genres in here. There's like these sort of the ones that sold are like these environmental portraits of this man and what he does. And then you do have like this is sort of an environmental portrait of another man and what he does as well. This one, Cheek, which will open up one day. Yeah. This is one of the other shots, once it loads up, that is one of the stronger ones that that the elements kind of tie together with the story in here. If it ever
Yeah.
opens up, we might have to just look at it small. Um, maybe I can press, maybe I can make it bigger like that. But yeah, so like this is a beautiful. She even have a man in the. I don't know if it. No, actually, I think that's a photograph of a man in the background too. But it's just interesting that he works in such a small little environment with these fabrics, these rugs, and floor mats and stuff. And I like his. I like that he's rolling up the rug and looking down. I think the composition is really well done, but it's hard to still tie that in with maybe if it was just this image and this image here, they tie together. But then you have another image of this man from behind, so it starts to feel like when those two are collected, that the story is actually about this man, and that there's multiple images in here. Like I think this is a strong image as well, little ones, but it just feels to me like it sort of belongs outside of the collection in something different, because now it's no longer about the job in which that those people are doing. So it seems like the artist is just grabbing different photos from different places that they've been, that they feel are their strongest portfolio type work from travel, and putting it into the same area. And I don't necessarily believe that's cohesive. And with that, Dan, do you have something to add or disagree with?
No. I actually agree with you completely. And one of the things that I think is a little bit what I've been doing is I've been tinkering around, looking through the artist's Twitter account and other work. And I'm just for me, I think this work it's not as good as the other work out. Here's the thing: that portrait of the guy with the tattoos, super cool. I
Yeah.
like the one with the fabric is also really cool. It's great. It has lots of it has a great energy to it. This
Hmm.
artist makes all kinds of cool, very very beautiful portraits, and man, go look at, and I can't tell Homan if this is a man or a woman, so I don't know. But go look at the profile. Go look at Twitter or even yeah, if you go look at
Sure. Let's look at their Twitter. So to do that, I could click on an image and then
or
there's
or you can just
all
yeah go
the
look there and you can see all the other work that's in this profile.
yeah, we could do that too. So 54 NFTs have been created. It's collected too. That's cool. And so there's Woman's Agony, Walk With Me. That same image is in Walk With Me? Maybe not. Oh no, this is the collection we're talking. I look a little different from this.
I wonder if they
Is it
trim
more images? Yeah,
I wonder if they trim back the collection at some point.
but there's stronger images in this. Like
Right.
look at this man with the drum.
Yep.
This man with the smoke coming out. So I would just rework this collection and remove some of these actually horizontal ones for the most part. This one this one seems to fit, I guess, within the narrative of environmental portraits about these men at least. Felt, I think, because he's holding this felt piece in his hand. In the narrow alleys of Kermanshah, I met him. He was a fan of Byron Munich Soccer Club in Germany. He was making a hat out of felt. So that makes sense to me within the idea of this man with the rugs. And it makes sense, like if you go back and look at like um, maybe even the man with the drum and some of these, or this one here, this top right image where it looks like there's this it's probably a woman um, making a paste or powder of some sort where maybe it's more about these people and their environments and what they do within their environments, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
let's let's see what collections should look at here. Got portrait editions. These are a lot different. Let's take a look at these. um, So he shows up in the banner, a bunch of the portraits, but he only has one of the. Let's go back to the pricing. So 0.025, and let's see what the edition is. Edition of 11, there's 20, so he still holds 10 of them. So, and it's a beautiful image of that too. So he's moving in and out of different genres and good at them. It seems like a maybe minting too much work before a collection sells out, or he does the needed changes to fix a collection, and maybe it feels sort of like abandoned in a sense. This collection that we're currently talking about when we look at the activity and how long ago it was. If we sort by
Yeah.
oldest, right? If we sort by oldest, it was minted 9 months ago. Hold on, I have to get my door real quick.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I agree. When you start looking at this stuff and you think about how old it is compared to especially compared to the other work that the artist has out there, and I went and did a little snooping around and found Homan's main website. Homan is a dude, okay, so I figured that out. But there's lots and lots of pictures of beautiful women, and so those show up as most of the profile photos on all the different social media profiles. But yeah, I think kind of my gut on this is I don't know that I'm not saying you should just completely abandon this work, but I feel like in some ways leaning into the other work that you have out there on the blockchain might be more successful. To me, it's far more compelling. It's far more unique than this particular collection. You back, Mike? Nope, Mike's not back yet. Okay, so um, we're kind of stuck looking at this particular page until Mike comes back. But one of the things that I think is super interesting is that as I've been looking around, what I'm finding. Hey, Mike, you're back.
I'm back.
Can you look at? I want you to click on his Twitter profile. I just mentioned while you're gone, I went and did some snooping, and I figured out that Homana is a man. even though his profile has a bunch of beautiful ladies.
Yes.
Go click on that foundation link if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. This is the thing I love about doing an AMA with you, Dan, is that you really like to dive into the other works outside of what we're talking about and try to tie something in together. I think it's really important.
Well, I think it feels to me like when you're able to do that, what you figure out is that the question, like I said before we started this artist, the question most of us are trying to figure out is how do I get my art in front of the right collectors? And what I'm noticing, and I said this while you were stepped away, is that I feel like that one collection that we were looking at today, I don't think it is as good or as compelling overall as Homan's other work. And I
I
think
agree. I
and I
agree.
think and I'm not saying that it doesn't have a place here. I think maybe it has a different place. Maybe it belongs on a different blockchain. Maybe this is a great opportunity to say, okay, maybe that work should be over on Tezos, or maybe it should be on Solana, um, or
Yeah.
maybe
As
under
one of ones, maybe, or not one of ones, but like an addition of the
right,
best piece in that collection, or put it into a collection of additions or something
right.
like that.
Well, and I say that mainly because when I look at this other work, this is really good studio work. It's thoughtfully composed. Like these are gorgeous. These are really
Mhm.
beautiful, well put together, and I just would love to see. This is the kind of work that for me is more interesting compared to the other work. The other work, and here's I'll just step back a little bit and say this: the other collection that on OpenSea of the kind of more street. Oh, look at that! Look at that!
I know, I know, I love this one I just opened up. Look at the black on her collarbone. This
That's
is
really, really,
phenomenal.
that's really great.
Yeah.
Here's what I find is that the other work is I've seen a lot of work like it. And I
Yeah.
don't mean to belittle it and say that, hey, don't bother with this. What I'm saying is, as an artist, your one of your main goals is to create a body of work that people go, oh yeah, that's Haman, right? That this is this artist, this is their look. I understand when they put work out that I'm collecting something that's part of a greater body of work. This work doesn't fit the rest of it,
Mhm.
and I'm not
Yeah.
saying you shouldn't take these photos. I'm not saying you shouldn't put them out there. I'm saying you need to figure out how do they how do they fit into your brand. And I know brand can be kind of a dirty word. Some people hate it, but regardless of whether you are trying to or not, you have a brand. But your brand is either cohesive and makes sense to people or it's not. And that's where we're at here. I look at this stuff in the fine art portrait and the soft as a flower, all of these beautiful portraits of women with these props, with this dramatic lighting. These speak to me
Yeah, and
in a way.
this one sold behalf of an ETH too, which is
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So I think it just probably has to do with, like, when we all first started and first started minting, that we weren't exactly thinking as well in the idea and the mind of curation. And it seems like he's evolved in that through some of the new stuff that he has put out. And so yeah, with that, I would probably just nuke the collection outside of the two that sold, and just make this collection about Iron Man, and what he's about, and then take some of these other strong images and find a place where they'll actually work. But with that said, I think the artist is making it hard on themselves by having so many. Let's look at the link tree: Foundation, OpenSea, Maker's Place, Known Origin. Saturating their own market to the point where they have put out a bit too much work, in my opinion, and what can be removed at this time and burned, especially for free on OpenSea, is probably in that artist's best interest for their trajectory. But not only that, for the fact that they have to market so many different collections. Like,
Well,
what do you focus on? It's
well,
hard.
let me say something else about that, Mike, because I think I'll say this. This pops to front of mind because my friend Steve Wallace Savage is in the audience here, and Steve is a big proponent of put all of the work out there, like mint lots of stuff, put lots of work out there. And so I think he would probably disagree and say, hey, no, there's no such thing as too much work. Here's what I would say is that there's not, I think that there's room for lots of work as long as it's well curated and people can understand how it fits into your body of work. And that's so I would say yes, there's a lot of work and it's okay to have a lot of work, but with a caveat that you still need to think about how does it fit and what story is it telling? What is it
I'll
telling?
relate. Yeah, I'll relate that in an interesting way to like bodybuilding, for instance. There's bodybuilders that say you can overtrain and then the muscle won't grow. And then there's bodybuilders that say there's no such thing as overtraining as long as you're eating enough, right? And so the way I relate that to this is sure, there you can have all these bodies of work out there, but do you have the bandwidth and the capacity to be able to storytell and keep relevant through your Twitter or spaces and stuff, all of those bodies of work? Because because if you can, then maybe you can have more interest in each area. But for me, speaking for me specifically, I like to have one collection out, usually at a time, possibly two, that because it's enough for me to be able to juggle with my bandwidth to keep to keep the story in the ears and eyes of others. So
Yeah.
I think yeah, if does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I've kind of struggled personally with having too much different kind of work out there. And I may have overcorrected and pulled back a little too much, but I tend to I want there to be a story to me as an artist. And so
Hmm.
yeah, when I look at this artist's work, it is obvious to me what they are really passionate about. And I feel like you should probably lean into that more. This is
I
the this
totally
is the
agree.
yeah, yeah, this is the strong work for me.
Uh,
Click
we're on the
fine
same
art.
page.
Would you click on that fine art portrait collection one more time?
Yeah, yeah, that one I really loved.
Yeah, yeah,
This feels a little less fine art and a little bit more like beauty to me. I think there's a category called
I agree. Yeah,
beauty within this type of work. Maybe it's fine art beauty. I'm not the one to determine what fine art is. It's a very tough subject where a lot of people, that's gorgeous.
yeah.
Um,
But I also feel like even this is a good example of kind of trying to keep them curated into the right kinds of groups. Um, I almost feel like that first one that's super strong, and it maybe doesn't really belong in the same collection with the other two.
but this one feels more to me. So it makes
Oh
more
yeah.
sense to the title of of what he's trying to go for here with fine art
Where's the one?
portraiture.
Where's the one in at the banner?
I don't know, but that one's awesome.
Uh huh.
That
And
one's.
even and
What
look at
about
the
here?
yeah, the
This one
thumbnail.
too.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Look at the sweeping
Okay.
hair. Yeah.
So Homan, where's the other work? We want to see it.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe that's somewhere else that he didn't mint it yet on here, and he's waiting for some of these to sell. But I think that this should replace this, and maybe even this should replace this.
Well,
Even
you
though
can
I
see
really like this and it's gorgeous, but this is dark,
and
dark,
look at
dark.
and remember not just that they all three of them have the paint.
Yeah, they have the paint and they have that mood, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
really good
Cool.
points we hit on with this by going into the other works of the collection. I love that.
Well, and I
Thanks for
think
that.
for me, that's kind of one of those things is that people can go, "Hey, here's my work," and I go, "Okay, cool, but where does it fit in your overall body of work?" Like that's the question that I didn't even realize I was doing that, but that's what I'm kind of getting at is that I can't give you advice without understanding your other work, what else you do.
Fantastic points, Dan. That was great. Cool. I think we can move on to the next
Yeah.
collection, which is Kids of Cambodia by uh, this is by Oikutuna. Oikutuna, I believe that's how you say it. Pull back a little bit here. I'm zoomed in a bit. Let's just take a little look at the artist statement. I hope you love to be here and happy to see my favorite collection. This collection includes 10 photos that I took in several places in Cambodia. one of the reasons why I'm a photographer is because it provides me a ground to raise my voice over inequalities on our planet Earth. So here you may see photos of children, mostly from rural and also poor areas of Cambodia. Since I didn't have any connections with the organizations there, I decided to support an organization here in my country with 30% of the income I'll get from each work in this collection. That's very good, 30%. The name of the organization is Nessun uh, Vakfi. I'm glad that he provided the organization there because people could follow up if they purchased a piece to see if things were donated, which gives support to the children, right? They actually gave that information. There's a lot of people that say that they're going to, and that we don't know, which gives support to the children who deprived of educational opportunities. I'll send a copy of the invoice. Oh, wow. I'll send a copy of the invoice and the best quality print of the photo chosen to the buyer. That's awesome. I'd love to know if he had done that because there are um, three here. Thing I did notice though is that the three are not actually buys. They well, I don't floor price. Oh well, they are buys because it's 0.75 volume. I did see that they were transferred, so they were probably just oh no, sale then transfer. Yeah, I'm wrong. They were bought here. So let's pull back. Let's open it up like this. It's just nicer to see. And I'll zoom in a little bit. Yeah, like that. And so, yeah, looking at this from afar, there's, this is cohesive, and this definitely ties into together of the to the story that he's talking about. And there's a few images here for me that that stand out above the rest. And so I think I'll point out the ones that don't stand out as much to me is the close-up portrait of the boy here, the close-up portrait of the girl here, outside of the context in which what's happening. And so if I go to an image like the girl at school, um, it holds a little more weight for me because dreams of a little girl, right? And you can see her expression is just beautiful, and she's deep into her work in school. And you can see another girl behind her, and with this great depth of field, and she's into her work at school, and it just provides more environment for me there. Which in this shot really is one of the ones for me. Will you play with me? That is probably the standout image for me within the collection. I love the composition. I love because he's talking about a place where they have a low income and stuff, and this girl has dirt on her, and there's a rip in this this mesh here, fishnet, and she's just looking out like, who will play with me? And so that really that one really hit me in the gut as one that's really strong. And some of the other ones too as well, where there's you know swing and the two. I'm not sure I'm crazy about the title, but another one where it's like, it's this like beautiful acrobatic performance almost, and there's a connection between the eyes of the children and the little kid playing in the background, and it's a beautiful depth of field. So I just wanted to point out, those three, and even this one here, which is one that sold future. Like, wow, like his gaze out to the open, and we don't even need to see what he's looking at because I don't even know that he's looking at anything. He looks like he's in one of those moments where we're not paying attention to what's actually in front of us, but we're deep inside of our own mind, and the inner workings of our mind, and what's about this future, and this girl here who's not overlapping and kind of doing the same thing as him in another direction, which is beautiful. So for me, the ones that really stand out in here are the ones that have that extra environment and connection that I could feel.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I think what I like about this is it doesn't feel forced. And before you started talking, I was almost thinking that there's nothing in here that I would get rid of. I think if there's one that feels like it doesn't make as much sense, it's All Alone, the third one.
This one here.
Yeah, I don't. There's two things about it that bother me. I, I'm just picking at it from just a technical perspective.
The cut off feet, then.
Cut off feet and the crooked horizon. I feel like this could be so much more powerful if you were half the distance and it was just had a straight horizon. And I think this would work really well as like a vertical, with maybe one side of the street, not both sides.
And maybe a little bit of dodge and burn in some areas. The face specifically to me, like I probably would go locally in Lightroom. If this is not shot on film, it's most stuff isn't nowadays. I'd probably go in locally in Lightroom and just create you know how you can use the tool to just with the brush tool. I
Right.
usually brush and I press O on my keyboard and it shows in red what is brushed. So I go really, really, and I brush in exactly what I want to pop in the image. And I would probably do that and just bring out the exposure of her just ever so slightly, even if it's just, 0.30 or a little bit more so that she just pops because, her face is a little lost through in the darkness. You could still feel the expression and stuff, but I think it could be a little bit better edited in, locally
Yeah, exactly.
local adjustments. But yeah, I mean, overall, the collection makes sense to the title. There's some beautiful images in here. This is great too. Even without the context, it doesn't feel forced. It feels like a moment in between moments with this. I'm not even gonna wait for OpenSea to load on this. I'll just press Control Plus and get a little closer to this. But it's a powerful gaze happening in the eyes here. I love how the eyes are really lit and pop in this, and her mouth is slightly open with the two teeth, and she's just I don't know. There's something I feel from this that she's just longing for something that's lost. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and maybe that's the title. I am here. Like notice me. I am here. Like she needs something from someone. And I don't know what that is, but um, so let's look at some of the. Let's look at. Let's go back to the first tab where we can see pricing, 0.25. We have three sold. Let's take a look at it from oldest uh, to most newly minted and see how long this collection's been around for 10 months. One of the longer collections I've seen, 10 months. You've been in this space for a really long time. It's listed and expired due to OpenSea and then relisted recently 3 months ago. And so um, I guess that's when it sold. But yeah, collection's been around for a long time. I think we should do the Dan where we kind of go and look at what else the artist has here.
I'm,
Um,
I'm, I'm way ahead of you.
so so I guess Twitter. Let's take a look at Twitter. I like to look at what they have. 3,006 friends. That's a good number there. The banner is really really interesting. I like that banner. And then where did you go from here? It says
I went,
PFP, but oh, link tree.
yeah, I went to the link tree and I went and looked and just kind of poked around a little bit. I loaded up the foundation page. Um, and this is work that feels similar, but is in a more, um, but less about, kids and a little more environmental. Um,
There's no description for the collection, but we'll take a look at the images. It's a beautiful shot of solitude, two friends, possibly great reflection. It's a different editing in these, though, right? The black and white editing is on a completely different tonality.
She has, I will say, I also had pulled up and she has some work that's over on Object as well.
Let's
That
take a look at look at that. We're looking at more stuff on Object lately. We have
and
a few from Object.
and this stuff's a little more similar to the OpenSea.
Cool. So this is this kind of collection? Let's see collections. So there's three collections. One collection has one image, one image. I'd rather look at it as collections, right? So let's look at the bridge since it has three. Um, so um, there's three items. Total volume is 60 tes. Nice. So one of one in here at 800 tes. I definitely think this is the beautiful, beautiful shot of this. It is hard to sell a one for 800 tes unless the foundation and Masan finds that image. And the best way for him to find it is to maybe send Masan a DM and say, hey, this I've been really enjoying Object, and this is an image that I took at this place, and would love to share it with you, something like that. Get a sale at that price point, because Object to me, and I've been studying Object for about 3 weeks now, and I'm far behind a lot of people who've been studying it longer than me. It's a place where a lot of artists trade with artists more in this realm, where there's editions of a lower price, such as this here's 20 at 30 editions, and they've got Leslie Spurlock, and a couple of other here, but still 27 to sell. So and then you have a colored image, the Lonely Bridge, and so another beautiful shot. To me a bit saturated in the greens. The green is sort of pulling me outside of the focus, which is like this beautiful purple umbrella. I think if more of the outer regions of the image were a bit more maybe muted, and more the eyes would be more focused towards the subject, that I think it could be more powerful here. Like maybe even if the hue of the greens or the saturation of it was a bit different. Let's see, they have owners on this. One owner and 29 still left. So with Tezos too, you still have to market your the work,
Well, and that for me has been the thing I kind of ran into is it. I put some art on Tezos, and I sold a few editions. And the thing that I kind of ran into is it feels like you're marketing to a completely different collector base, and I just couldn't keep up with it. I was like,
well, yeah, the collector base is more artist to artist transactions, where the prices are actually even lower, like 5 Tez, like this. You see how this one has a lot more buyers, and I don't necessarily think it's you know what, maybe it is stronger than the umbrella one. I don't know. I think the umbrella one to me is the stronger image, if it wasn't so saturated. But you'll just make more volume in sales when you're listed at lower editions. And sort of what I learned from Sonny and Zach Lip is that you really need to find a way to sell out your initial primary on here, because the magic happens on Tezos in the secondary market, where everybody buys it for 5, and then people begin to relist it at 30 Tez or something, right? Because 5 Tez is really just it's not 1-for-1. It's not $5, but it's like 1-for-1.5. So I don't know. My math's not great, so it's probably like more around, I don't know, nine or $11 each. I don't know. I'm not going to try to do the math, but yeah. So there's some people that really rocketed in this space on Object by doing that. And I mean, if you look at some of the stuff that I have notifications from, this guy's selling these for 0.09 Tez, which is like, I don't know, probably 50 cents or less. Like, and I've bought a bunch of these. Some of these I've bought like 5 of them, and then his stuff will sell out. Let's just give a little idea of Object here. His stuff will sell out, and then some people then will start selling it for 5 Tez or so, or 13 Tez. Well, like, let's look at this one. I own this one, right? This is 5 Tez, and let's see what it was originally listed at, 0.1. So that's a 50x increase, right? So that's where the magic is sort of happening on here, is where no one actually, one person has bought it so far at 0.5, which is a 5x, but we're in a soft market. So maybe in the future, some of these ones that I'm buying at 0.09, I could flip later on. And I'm not afraid to say that I'd flip things, and I've bought Facial. This is me. I bought 5 of these because I love this, and at 35 cents or 50 cents or whatever it is, it was worth it for me to buy 5. So
right.
yeah, I think that's sort of where people have to understand Tezos is uh, not to be thought about how much exactly you're going to make in the primary, but do you have the capacity to flip heavily in the secondary? We went a little off on from the original collection of theirs, but just getting an idea of like what they're showing and a little bit about what what object is about and maybe who it's for and who it's not. Like I'm obviously my stuff is listed really high in here, 1100 tes. It's stuff one of ones. And I've sold one, and I'm not in any rush. I have just stuff listed because I don't know because I have and I collect a lot, right? I own like 10 pages, and probably on page 4 you could see where I'm collecting more photography and stuff like that. But and I don't know that I'm in a position to list additions at such a low price because I've had, if you've had success on the ETH side, right? And, my last sales on the ETH side is, 1.5 ETH. If I go over to Tez and I list work that's of similar quality and the cumulative value in primary is, 0.1 ETH, and someone just bought something for 1.5, I'm possibly hurting a relationship with collectors that now see that, you know what I'm saying? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it totally
So
does.
yeah,
It's funny that you and I haven't talked about this, but I've had that exact same conversation with so many other people. I actually had an artist friend reach out and go, "Why are you selling your work so cheap on there?" and I was like, "Wait a second. You need to understand the structure of it and what it is." But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good to kind of to dabble around a little bit. I actually just I had a. It's funny that we dug into this object thing because I had a scheduled tweet and I just went ahead and pushed send on it, sharing one of mine because I think that it's good to it allows people to have access to your work. So we got off and at a price that's lower. It allows artists to maybe jump in and get involved, which is cool. Um, and
yeah, it's during a soft market, especially, right? So let's
yeah,
see. Let me retweet what you've posted up there. You said you just tweeted.
I just sent it out. Yeah,
All right, awesome. So let's
yeah,
just
that
do
one.
a little retweet on this, and yeah, beautiful, beautiful shot, man. I
But
gotta.
this is
I
super different than anything I've shared on Ethereum. I've never put. I do have one light trail shot on Ethereum, but nothing. I don't. I only have one urban shot at all. So this is for me. It was like, okay, this is cool. And the way I structured it is that it's a bigger edition, and the price escalates as pieces sell.
Yeah, so a different market for different things. So 50 editions at 5, which yeah, which is what cumulative of is that 500, wait, 50 times 50, 100, 50, 100. Yeah, 250 TES would be in a primary if and when it sells out, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the idea is that, um, and it doesn't say it in here, but like for me, the price goes up. Every 10 that sell, the price goes up.
Well, here I'm going to buy one right now. Show you guys how to buy on TES.
But and please, my goal was not to sell work on here, but I think it's good to understand how it works, um, and to kind of think about how can this maybe fit into what you're doing. I have shared work that is on Tez. It's only street and urban stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I like it. And yeah, and
Look,
see you can
look
you
at my
can
profile because you'll see it's stuff that I actually had some of it on Ethereum, but I moved it over here because I didn't feel like it fit my Ethereum vibe.
ooh, I like that one. Yeah. Between a shadow and the truth. This is great.
And
Very
this is
cool.
stuff that I had on Ethereum for months and months that never sold. And so I just said, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can open this up and do something a little different with it.
Yeah. I'll take that one too. I
Cool,
like that
man. Thanks.
one. Welcome.
It's like you're buying me a coffee today, or a couple of
No, coffees, please.
them.
Um, well, yeah, I don't know what the price of Starbucks, but anyway, that was a cool little introduction into like what it's like to buy something on Tez and what the primary and secondary is like, and to get people understanding. But cool, I think we can move on to the next collection, right?
Yeah. If I was going to give one piece of advice to this artist, I would just say you've got some good stuff here. You're doing a good job curating. You're sticking with your themes, which is I think really good. And just keep doing more of that. You've obviously had some success. You've sold a few of these pieces, so it's really about continuing to structure things so that collectors understand what they're looking at. This is going to appeal to a certain kind of collector, and you are very good at it. So I would say keep it up. Keep making more good collections like this, and then just keep sharing this. This is good work.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. Cool. So, damn, I gotta check my notifications on here. Little Moments. This is Little Moments by Hassam Ali. Hassam Ali. And it's only one image, so and I really like the image. Let's look at the description first. Little Moments is a collection of one-of-ones that tell the story of my journey through beautiful landscapes and wondrous places I knew nothing about. They're very short and to the point. Probably add a little bit more. Um, let's see. Let's take a look at the image. Emptiness, and this really needs to be viewed large. And here's why: because we got this beautiful yellow subject um, right in here, sort of on like this the top of the this it looks like snow to me, top of this snowscape. And I love this image, the layers of it. I mean, I'm sure you do, Dan, too, because you've shot a lot of desert scenes that kind of have these geometric. Look at this.
Oh,
Look at this sort of
gorgeous, right?
I
And
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna
Go ahead.
I'm gonna give a little shout out here too. Haysom is in my. We almost every morning we're GMing, so I'll just say, um, it's like a daily thing. Super stoked when I saw this image. It is gorgeous. I love the little tiny figure. I love the mountains and the blue color. Yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah, yeah. This mountain range is just perfect, right? To get that mountain range, to get these shapes. I don't know if to call this a triangle. It's probably a different shape than that has a long name. But this geometry and have all of that and the clouds and then just to have that figure also with that timing. Um, Phenomenal image. I love the image. My only feedback here is that like I want to see more in this collection. Like they're little moments, but there's just one. I'd love to see at least three. You know, and I just it's yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more in the description. Is there a description in the emptiness? Okay, so you have a long description here. Let's read this up until the license. We won't read the license. You know what comes to mind when I think about emptiness? Nothing. And that gets me thinking, maybe it's okay. Maybe not everything in life has to have a deep meaning. Maybe for some people, it's the simplicity that comes with the emptiness, and it's the art of living that can be found in simplicity. Maybe it's okay to not be okay. Maybe it's okay to not have every moment planned out. Maybe it's okay to not live every moment to the fullest. Maybe it's okay if the only thing you did today was breathe. Do you see the irony? Emptiness brought nothing, but it brought everything. I love that. That's so good. I wish that you can take this poetic art description within this photograph and give us something poetic within the description of the actual collection as well. And that would be really perfect. And I just want to see more. I want to see more work from him. So let's take a look and go to his foundation.
There's not a good link for here. I just looked, but if you just go type him in, his name it pulls it right up. Oh, there we go.
But there is it's a drop down thing. I was confused by that too, but it's a drop down. But let's look at you have lovely here.
This one's owned by Rachel Wood.
Oh wow, yeah, Rachel Wood. She's an amazing female artist in the space. I love Rachel.
Yep.
Great, and this is Ghost the Mountain.
It's a cool
so
piece.
yeah. So I mean, I guess this isn't meant to be in a collection. It's called Ghost of the Mountain, and he has one piece in here, and that's fine. Maybe that's the way to work through it. But in this one, emptiness, you do describe that. It sounds like in the description of Little Moments that it is going to be a collection. It says it will be a collection. So I do want to see more work in here. I think this is amazing start, and hopefully just go
go look at his Twitter because there's a whole bunch of great work out there. Um,
Yeah, I know
that
Haysom.
just
Mhm.
looking through, look through his Twitter profile because there's a whole bunch of great mountain shots.
Let's look at media. I've been using the media tab a lot lately to see that type of stuff. Beautiful. Let's retweet. Um, there's another. I want to retweet that too. Great. Cool. So I don't know if that fits into little moments. We'd have to figure that. Maybe little moments have people in them. It's a cool shot. These guys are really dangerous to get in close contact to. I know that.
Yeah. He also has a whole series on that's called The One with the Mountains on OpenSea that is basically, I don't know if it's sold out or it might be really close to sold out if it's not.
Why don't we take a look at it? Let's see. Um, OpenSea. Here's OpenSea Edge of the Unknown, and this one just says OpenSea. I also thought it's thought as OpenSea.
Yeah, this is there's four or five pieces in here that's sold out. So
Creative. One with the mountains. Oh yeah, I tweeted this the other day. Um, these are all sold out. Yeah, these are beautiful. So I guess the difference between little moments and these are maybe going to be a figure within the landscape, or maybe it doesn't have to be.
I'm just gonna say
Wow.
I think that I like the mountains. I think those are beautiful. I really like them. I love all of the snow leopards. Those are cool. And there's a whole collection of 10 pieces on Sloika of
Mhm.
the Ghost of the Mountains 10 pieces. Yeah, and 8 of them are sold. So uh,
Yeah.
yes, or eight pieces and 6 of them are sold. So great work. And I feel like if anything, I agree. Add more work to this foundation collection. It's really good. You're doing a great job there. And I would say I know if you bothered to go all the way out there, you've got more pictures from here. So this is
Yeah. I
the
bet
sort of
if we
thing.
hit his Instagram, we would see them. Right.
But I would build that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I mean, I'm just going to take a quick uh, overview of Instagram here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that. That's little moments right there. That's minted, right?
Yep,
Mhm.
that's cool. Oh,
Yeah.
that
I
top
mean,
one in the middle, the next one over from there. It's
this
pretty
one.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah, that is.
that's cool.
Lots of beautiful stuff, but I could see some of these into that little moments collection. I mean,
Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's cool. Look at the one in the middle. Like, go down one more. Keep right there.
yeah, yeah,
So
beautiful.
that color palette's really nice.
It is. Yeah, amazing artist. Lovely, lovely work. Definitely, yeah, definitely just curating some of this stuff into collections that fit those. Let me see this. Yeah, sort of a little moment to me. Um, Beautiful. Yeah, I would love to see more in that foundation collection. Cool. I think we can move on to the next one though.
Yep.
Great job. Um, have all these tabs open. All right, so yeah, next collection is Magic of the Underwater, and this collection is by Saval Oral Nertal. Let's read this. I know I like the artist statement in this. Um, the moment you experience the beauty of underwater life, you are enchanted by the magic of it. When you go deeper, you may find more serenity. Much as Jules Verne said, on the surface of the ocean, men wage war and destroy each other. Just a few feet beneath the surface, there's a calm and peace unmolested by man. Apart from the world we live in, underneath is a calm and mysterious world. I dive to explore this world. I choose black and white instead of color to show the contrast of two different worlds. I started underwater photography by combining my passion for diving and photography. I love the combination of two passions coming together. I see that a lot in space, and it's really cool. Um, I got to combine some of my. I love dancing. I love to dance. I have to
Um,
combine that with photography sometime. the photo. Maybe I'll photograph dances in underground nightclubs or something. I'm thinking about a new passion project right now while I work on my others. But very cool. I love the artist statement. Beautifully written. Doesn't give away anything about the images. Just lets us into the world of the unknown and how you feel about this calm and mysterious place that lies below chaos. Um, so cool. Like, let's take a look at some of these before we get into price or anything like that.
It's a tank. That's that's awesome.
Right? There's some really cool ones in here.
And the plane with the guy on with the diver on top of it, he's it's pretty cool. That one's already sold.
Yeah, so I was gonna mention this because I studied this before this collection. I really enjoy the ones where there's that element of that of a diver within the image. This is really really cool. It almost feels fake in a sense. Like it almost feels like an AI rendered piece. You know, we know it's not. And there's a diver here too. Look, but are these bubbles coming up? It looks like the plane is a character, like a duck. It looks like a cartoon character almost. And this guy just feels like an AI rendered, alien version of a scuba diver or something. It's in all the bubbles. It's a great, great shot. And then like you mentioned the tank. Yeah, tanks. It's just wild that this tank is just at the bottom of the sea, like how heavy it is, and it doesn't look like it's that deep because you could see the light at the top, right? If you could see the light, then it's not that deep under the sea. And he has little writings here. So the 45-ton 1960 model tank belonging to the Turkish Armed Forces is located at a depth of 20 meters. So it's about 60 feet. So it's not too far down. We're used to seeing tanks on land and in battles. What about underwater? Really cool.
That's pretty cool.
Right? There's another one with the divers involved too that I really like. It's a Coast Guard boat that's at the bottom. And while on its own, it's a beautiful image. There's just something about the divers and adding to the composition in this area, making the image feel just like have a better weight. And then also this adds another element of atmosphere with the bubbles coming up from the exhale of the scuba oxygen tank.
Yeah,
I really like this. Yeah,
just great. It's good stuff.
Yeah, the story is the TCSG 119 Coast Guard boat sank at 21 meters. This is way further down. This is this is over 60 feet below. When it first sank, it was then dragged up to 43 meters. So it's dragged up due to the storm. A storm dragged it up. Wow. Wait, what dragged it down? I guess, right? Because 43 meters is deeper. It's at a depth that advanced divers can reach. You have to be an advanced diver to even reach this. As you descend from the top, he suddenly appears in the form of a ghost ship in the fog. So I love the history behind it, letting us know about the depths of it, and just just the writing. And that last sentence of as it suddenly appears in the form of a ghost ship in the fog.
Right.
It's really beautifully written. Some phrase in this one is standing out to me in the thumbnails as well. All of this propeller where all of this algae and sea growth have developed its own sort of ecosystem and community on this man-made object under the sea is really, really interesting.
I like it. I like it. This is just cool. It's good. It's good work.
Yeah, it is. I think we take a look at how long it's been around. Sorry, my oldest. This one's minted 5 months ago. Yeah, this one has a sale. This was sold at 0.15 and sold to this anonymous address. But very cool. That's the one that sold. Yeah, and let's take a look, I guess, at so the descriptions and all that are good, right? Properties. Probably add properties, one of one properties of the artist name, right? We've talked in the past, Ann, about how properties being the new sort of metadata or EXIF data for the blockchain or future of the blockchain for art and other things.
Yeah. Well, and that's something we haven't really touched on much today. I feel like people are, they're getting, we're seeing some better descriptions across the board. But I feel like that's one of those things that you should still take your time, work out. Every piece should have a description. It doesn't have to be super wordy, but it needs to tell you what you're looking at. And I really believe you should be putting things in the properties fields. I think it makes
Yeah,
it.
this one's a little more up to date. It's one of their additions here. It has the properties that I
I
think
was just
are
looking at
most important.
this one looks familiar, like I've seen it before.
Yeah, it's a beautiful shot of a winter tail, two figures out in the storm. Beautiful leading lines with these, just light poles and trees, and love little hints of blue in the background. So,
Yeah.
very cool, very very cool. Which is another collection here. Colorful doors, and
Oh, these are cool.
this is really cool. Look at this shot. Oh, this is owned by Millie. This one's, yeah, it's right off the just final. Yeah, right off the bat, like just looking at it like slide film, like looking at it like you get your film back and you're trying to figure out what's the coolest one. This one to me just stood out just looking at it from afar. Beautiful shot, composition, centered composition, man, some deep thought, flowers, and how he has this drape to kind of go into his place. It's really different.
These are really cool.
I know, I like them too. Um, they're only priced at 0.05. Are they? I think it looks like it's. Is it? It looks like it's a one of one. It looks like you can't buy. Let's see. Um,
Yeah, these are one of ones.
this little color. Yeah, one of one at 0.05 is really compelling on this. This one doesn't have the properties in there, so I'd be more consistent if you're going to have properties in one to have properties in the rest. Looks good. Yeah, really beautiful work. I like this stuff a lot. So, cool. I don't know if you had anything else on this your original collection.
No, I just think it's really beautiful. I like this. It's always interesting to me like this to say, okay, we're in here to look for something, but we end up finding something else that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So really cool stuff. Awesome. Let's look on Twitter real quick. Let me make sure that I follow this artist. I do. Mutual follows, and OpenSea just has a link to OpenSea. So not over flooding things with multiple platforms, and only has TreeBuddies at work out there. Speed Media, I'd probably focus. Oh, she has an underwater world. Give a retweet on this. So I'm just focusing on that right now and other collections and stuff like that. So her media looks like she's definitely putting information out there. So that's good. Cool. So with that, move on to the next collection, which is Frozen in Time by Sagar Kapoor.
Also,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, the yellow one, I just bought that.
Oh, awesome! On the last collection, correct?
Yeah, I love that. The red
this
door,
one,
the blue.
Yeah,
shutter.
Awesome! Congratulations to you for buying that, and for it's in the Dan Hawk vault now. That's quick.
Vault.
Cool, and congratulations to Saval as well. The sale. This collection is really phenomenal. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't even. This is what's crazy is I wouldn't have even found this before. I think this is the thing is I wish there was a way for us to. Well, I mean there are, and I think this is the stuff to think about is that we just need to work through how do you share the work? How do you? And this is a way to share work. And I'm not saying that. Hey, now everybody needs to come start submitting your work because Dan and Mike are going to buy the work. But I think that it is interesting to figure out. Okay, there's spaces, there's being involved with doing stuff with collectors, there's being in groups with other artists. There's all kinds of ways to do this, but how have I never seen this before? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, we follow a lot of people. It's hard to see everything. And so it's good that we get to highlight some of this stuff here.
Yeah,
And yeah, we both bought some stuff that resonate with us.
I'm a
Cool.
fan now.
Yeah, same. And when I first mentioned Saval, I didn't know this was female artist with in the name, but female artist in space. So really beautiful work, Saval. Thank you for submitting today. And congrats to both of you guys on a beautiful piece and a sale. So cool. With that, we'll move on to Frozen in Time by Sagar Kapoor. And let's read the description. This is on Foundation. It says from the fleeting moments of life, from the paths traveled by me, presented here are some non-fungible moments of my life as NFT. Okay. Yeah, I'd probably work on this artist statement a little bit, and um, yeah, and just be a little bit more yeah, descriptive in what you're creating here and what it's about. So just from looking at it, just from a just looking at it without opening any up, to me, it feels only cohesive in the sense that it's in black and white. These images are very different genres to me. Seems as though like some of these are like street or documentary moments. This is more of a conceptual moment. This is more of a sort of cityscape slash lifestyle or whatever moment, and more of another documentary type moment here. So you have three: Vagabond, Bit Working, and the Shashanj on a Rainy Day that feel like more like they fit in within this collection of work. But let's open up some of the images. Vagabond. This is a strong shot to me in the sense that like everything is literally in motion except for the faith of this boy who's riding this horse through the town, and he's got a really powerful expression. I love that. Um, I don't know if a little bit of I don't even sometimes I use vignette, not often, but sometimes a little bit around this area here is a bit white for me, so maybe like burning a little bit of this down or something and bringing that focus a little more. How do you feel about that? I know you're more technical than me in editing and stuff. So.
You know, this one, I agree with you. I think that it feels like there's some good detail here, but it feels okay. So this is where I get a little bit nitpicky. I feel like black and white, it is all about tonality, right? So
Yes.
what I'm seeing is that there's some areas kind of behind his head and often on the right hand side that are just kind of blown out. And so probably what I would do is I would think about pulling the highlights back, and I would probably pull the blacks down so you kind of bring the black point to a darker spot. Um, and I think it's because what I really want to see is I want the focus to be that is his face and the horse, right? Um, and the texture of that rug on his lap. I don't really care about that blown out area in the back. It's actually kind of distracting. And so so I would probably pull the highlights, pull the blacks down, and I'd probably put a vignette, like you said, and I would also I would crop it a little bit because it feels a little bit like there's just a little too much around him.
Like maybe like the story is maybe more
Oh,
about that,
yeah, or maybe even the guy behind him is in it. He doesn't need to be just like that. He doesn't need to be directly in the center, but I think something like that might work a little better.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And here's one of the things I think also works, and I've been experimenting with this for myself. I like it like this because it forces you to. It's not 2x3. It's now more of like a 6x7, maybe. Is kind of how it
Little
feels.
almost square, almost
It
one on
almost
one.
feels like a filmy sort of medium format thing.
It does,
And I like that
yeah.
there's the motion feels stronger if you cut off the left hand end of the frame.
And so there's something to be said about the editing process of our artwork with photography being almost as important as the actual taking of the photograph to tell our story. And you see this a lot with Michael Sadovsky, who was like a really just incredible photographer who, um, you can tell does lots of local adjustments in his editing where he wants your eye to go um, first, and it brings your eye all throughout his frames, Michael, and then um, it just the areas that we don't necessarily want our eye to go to here, like this this van necessarily, this here. You can make these edits so that it could even pop and stand more. Um, but let's just look first at, I guess, the images that this one has a really strong story. I mean, this is collected by Tech Bubble. Tech Bubble collects a lot of stuff, by the way.
Yep, I'm noticing that too.
He collects a lot. The story behind the shot is really, really powerful. So, seeing his face, he seems really lost, really concerned. And then you read it, and it's the orphan. Everyone was jumping around and dancing to the festival music when I noticed the kid staring at the entry gate without blinking. He'd been staying in the orphanage for the past few weeks now. After clicking this photo, I asked him, why isn't he celebrating? To which he replied in a very innocent voice with eyes welling up, I'm waiting for my mummy and papa. They said they'll come back to take me. They haven't come yet. He just stood there waiting. So he's an orphan, which means his mother and father dropped him off there, and they're not coming back. And this has just really, really made me sad um, to hear the story behind that. And I think that's where a description can take a photograph from being a really good photograph to just being really great. That just was really powerful to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and with that, with that being said, it doesn't. This is a collection, right? Is it described as a collection? It's fleeting moments of life, and so if you're not considering this as a collection, you got to mention it in here somehow. Because like an image like this, and next to the orphan, it's just completely different. And while I really like this, it's ghostly, it's abstract, it's conceptual, it has motion. It's different, right? Scream, it's different. A self-portrait depicting the internal turmoil that one feels when they are in depression, and you can feel that in the image. You want to burst out, but the scream is never able to break the surface and stays hidden beneath the veil of pretense that we put up in front of others. The great writer. The only way towards freedom from suffocation is to take the first step to ask for help. So, this artist is very thoughtful, really great writing, some great images. Just needs a, just I guess a lesson in curation and how to tie images together that don't only work by themselves but work together as a whole. Because chimneys is just a completely different image as well, right? And it's an interesting study of geometry, tonality, and just shape. Um, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I know.
agree.
Go ahead.
Well, and I think this is just leaning in one more time to these same kind of questions. Is there's people in 4 of these images, and then one of them has no people in it, right?
Yeah, the chimney is one.
That breaks it for me. The chimneys, I just don't. That doesn't. It's not as interesting to me. Whereas the other 4, I would say that what's the screaming one called?
It's called Scream.
Scream. Okay, sorry. This is the only one
Okay.
I didn't get the link, and so I didn't pull it up myself. Scream is interesting. Doesn't fit to me among the other ones, but the chimneys even more doesn't fit.
Yeah, I mean, this fits within a collection of self-portraiture images about emotions.
Right.
That can be a collection that would be very desirable, because when you could put a collection together of of something that it's almost like how PFPs operate, right? PFPs operate in a way that they're all similar in the sense of what it's like, but they have different attributes to them. Like maybe one PFP is wearing a hat, the other has a smoking a pipe or this, or wearing another is wearing a like a a psychedelic shirt or something. So if you can make a collection of self-portraits that feel cohesive in a way where, and that's how it works with PFP systems. It almost feels like collectible trading cards. If you can make this feel like in a self-portrait card, a collectible series that people want to relate to each emotion within each image, that makes a lot of sense to me. But within a collection of these, it doesn't exactly. So this one image we didn't look at. This is Shachran. Shashran. I don't know if the J is silent, on a rainy day, and this looks like it's a group of middle-aged to older gentlemen playing chess here, and it's an interesting image. I think that it's a little dark. Maybe I don't know if it's my screen or not, but I think that you could have done some probably local adjustments in pulling shadows in some areas. Like I do want to see a little bit more of what's going on with this man, his expression, the mouth open, the hand looking down at the chessboard. Compositionally, I think it's done pretty well in regard that there's no one really overlapping each other. I mean, this man has his own story. He has his own story. You have the scale outside the back window. I just think that it's a bit dark in some areas for me, where it could be pulled out and be a stronger image. Right. So very cool. Let's just take a quick gaze into maybe what else they have on. There's two collections. Oh, two collectors. I'm sorry. There's four collections they have on Foundation. Last Voyage. This seems more like a digital artworks. Really cool. Just getting an overall idea of what we're making here. This looks more like illustration. So, the artist is experimenting in a lot of different genres. This one sold for 0.152 friends. Look at this. This is a really
Yeah, that's cool.
picture. This is really cool. I love the connection with the, and I just love the like. I love the shape and how like stuff is not necessarily um true to life, in the fact that like it's perfect, that it has these ridges and these this it has this when you look at animation work and cartoons and stuff like that, you can really see the difference in the way that these animators um, create and how different their styles are. I mean, if you look at the difference between Rick and Morty to The Simpsons or something like that, there's just like, it's the same with photography. Like you could create a style where it feels a certain way, and this is just really, really beautiful. This animation. I know we're going off on animation here. We're talking about photography, but also, the kind of the downside of doing this is that like your identity as an artist becomes a little bit confusing, right? Like, and I don't know, there's some collectors that if they're confused by the identity of what you're actually doing, maybe they might not collect. And I always preach about how it's always great to step outside of your comfort zone and try different things and stuff. But, I think a question to ask for yourself as an artist is like, are you enjoying creating these photograph moments in time more than you are, creating your illustrations, and what actually speaks to you and who you are more as an artist.
Right.
I think it's definitely okay, but it's a hard to identify what you're what, who you are as an artist, if because part of the hard part of being an artist is being able to make work, and for people to be able to see that work and say like, oh wow, I know that's Dan Hawk, because that's how he composes an aerial shot, or how he composes a landscape, and that's the tonality that he uses across the board. Or it's a very, very hard thing to do, and it takes, I think, for most people years to decades or so to come up with that cohesiveness that it comes from them, or they find their own identity through work. So it's just something to think about. But yeah, I find some beautiful moments in here. The orphan was the one that really stood out to me the most with that story. That's just really compelling. And just brought a tear to me before, and I was looking at it, studying the artist before, and reading about that, and thinking what it must be like to be that child waiting for his parents to come back, which never come back, and the hurt, pain, and stresses that that child's going to have to live with now because of it. And hopefully, a family that's really caring will come along. And
It's
you know,
it's especially rough because I think you look at it. For me, it's powerful because it speaks to something that I don't know. It puts me in a place where I have to kind of wrestle with like the fact that that's a reality. Um,
yeah,
and I have, I mean, what can I say? I grew up in the United States, kind of middle class, and I have friends that were adopted, and I have friends that were, you know, that were kind of given up, and I have other friends and that have adopted children with open adoptions where they're still in touch with the birth parents, and so it's just you look at this and you go, okay, we this is a powerful statement. So an image like this with this kind of a caption, man, this is great. And I feel like you have to figure out when you've got work like this that when you have work like this, you have to figure out how do I make more work that's meaningful like this. And not that you have to go search out stories that are heartbreaking, but this means something.
absolutely. Absolutely, and there's a lot of artists that will say, um, there's no right or wrong, right? There's a lot of artists that'll say like, I'm tired of hearing collectors that want a description from my images. The story, the photo should be enough on its own to tell it. But this is a really great example of how a description can elevate an image. This, if it's written correctly, and he's telling us that he's asked the child this after clicking it, like that could be the reason that Tech Bubble bought this. You
Right.
know, this could be the reason why Tech Bubble bought this. Because outside of that, it is a powerful image on its own because we don't know what's happening here. And he does feel lost and he does feel concerned. And you can feel sadness in this, especially that it's during a festival and he's not celebrating. But that description really punches this image up to another level. And so while I do think some images maybe don't require as much of a description, there are some images that can be seriously elevated through descriptions.
Right.
So, but very, 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 very great work. Just a curation thing, and some other really great illustration work here. And I got to dive more into this artist myself to see on their Twitter and stuff what else they're creating. But really cool. Hopefully, we provided some really good feedback here for not just the artist, but other listeners and stuff about about curation and descriptions and stuff of that sort. And looking at an artist's complete discography and full body of work and seeing how that ties into their overall picture of who that artist is and what their identity is as an artist.
Exactly.
Moving on to the next collection, we have here. This is child musicians. This is by Nuri Koban, and this is a collection that's been out for a long time. I'll sort this by oldest. And a good indication that a collection's been out for a long time is I remember last year when I joined the space, even myself, I did this with one of my collections where I titled things as like number one, number two, number three, number four, and to even title it with the same title as the actual title of the collection, which I think we've sort of more moved on and evolved in the sense that creating titles like where we were just talking about descriptions that are compelling in a way that doesn't give away completely what you want to tell what the image is about, but leaves some intrigue to open up your own imagination and discussion about an image. And so let's read the artist's statement, right? So this says, Koselli municipality gave violin training to 1,000 gypsy children for 1 year with the 1,000 Gypsies, 1,000 Violins project. That's really cool. With this project, these children became integrated with the society and gave a great concert. The audience had a very enjoyable time. Okay, cool. So it's a project about where these children were given instruments, and I don't know if these children had prior training or anything like that, but they're on violins here, and just looking at it from here, the most compelling one to me is actually this last one here, Musician Six, um, where wow, this is just a banger shot within this for me. Uh, just I don't know how this is created, whether it's through long exposure or some Photoshop preset where you're creating a motion blur, and I don't care because I think it's just so fantastic that we know. And the kid is even wearing a red shirt and a sea of white, and he's playing the violin and he's looking at the violin. It's just a really really beautiful capture here. Um, I just love that one. Um, all right. And then, there's some other images here where, this one to me, while it's while it's a compelling gaze from the child and the other child's here playing off, there's just too much distracting elements in this environment for me. I mean, the violin is coming out of the back of this child's head who's clearly overlapped. The kid with the Spider-Man hoodie brings away from this classical, which could be nostalgic sort of time period vibe that we could have here. It doesn't fit well as for me as compositionally. Maybe if this was shot with a really really a shallow depth of field on a different lens, which maybe the artist doesn't actually have. Maybe they do. That last image looks like it could possibly be. I don't know because there was motion blur, but yeah, to separate the subjects here. And when I look at white in an image, I always look at white in a way that, is it pure white? And in this, I see blue tones. So to me, this could be further corrected, and you can almost see it in the face of the child too, that the skin tone is not exactly accurate. And so in a situation like this in Lightroom, I would probably take an eyedropper tool and put that eyedropper on an area like maybe this little white line here, or an area that's neutral, right? There's neutral areas where you could put the eyedropper to get that temperature, but it feels like this temperature is a little too cool for my own taste. I don't know with what I said about this image, if you have any thoughts on any of that, Dan.
Well, I think so. For me, when I'm looking at these, there's a couple things that kind of bother me about it. I feel like that too many of these images are all, look at the first four, they're all framed the exact same way, with a child playing violin, kind of straight on. The fifth one is slightly different, and then the sixth one is, or the fourth one is, fifth one, and then the sixth one is very different. I don't know that. I just don't think we're telling a very compelling story here. I like the overall concept of what's happening here. I want to see more
Perspectives.
Maybe, yeah, more perspectives, maybe more detail shots, more of the artists, the kids that are playing with maybe where you can see the audience. There's just it's kind of lacking to me, and I think if I think about it, this is kind of documentary work, right? But if I turned this in as a documentary photographer, I feel like there's just not a lot of story being told here. And I want to see a lot more. I want to see more of like the environment. I want to see more of, what do these kids' parents look like? Are they there? Because obviously this is a project to get the musical instruments in the hands of these kids that are from gypsy communities. Well, where are the gypsy community people? How does that? Because otherwise, you just go, this looks like a bunch of elementary school kids playing violin.
Exactly, and so you're right. And so,
environmental, it's lacking context and environmental context, and that will be the thing that I think would make these a lot stronger. I'm also noticing when I look through the metadata here on these are very old photos. These are taken in 2011. So, and then when I went and kind of poked around in the artist's other work, there's a lot of work in their OpenSea profile that is far more compelling and is better storytelling to me. It's a better example of what you do as an artist.
Yeah, you know what it feels like to me is that it says that they did this for 1 year, but looking at the collection, it feels like a one go. You know, it feels like if they were doing this for 1 year, had the artist revisit it over and over and over again, that those elements that you're talking about that would fit into a story, I think would be there. And so when I went to the Eddie Adams workshop, which is the premier workshop for photojournalism, I had sat down with a lot of editors from, you know, all the biggest, like Time, you know, Time Magazine and New York Times and Reuters and all that. And you know, a lot of what they told me about creating documentary work is having um, different, you know, different aspects within the work of like what you're talking about, right? So an up close macro shot, right? A portrait shot. So we have a portrait shot, right? One of these is a portrait shot. We have more of a not necessarily bird's eye view, but a top down shot of, and this is why I think this one is the most compelling to me, is that we have all of this stuff that's happening around this one boy, and we clearly know who the subject is, the boy with the red shirt. And even if it wasn't in motion, we would still know that the boy with the red shirt was the subject, because he's the only one wearing a red shirt in this sea of white. But the fact that they chose to use a slower shutter speed or the editing process here really brings out. So this story to me, this shot to me stands on its own. So I think it just needs more photographs within this story that stand on their own, that operate within a collection of images that also tell a story. So you know, what I've learned in those workshops about documentary is, you know, low perspectives, macro detailed shot perspectives, bird's eye perspectives. Um, you know, and like you said, not just what's happening with just the children that are playing, but you know, behind this child, right, in this shot, musician one, if it opens, try to open it again, because OpenSea is being very slow today. You know, I'm just going to just zoom in a little bit. There's a lot behind here, right? Like there's this environment back here, like it looks like just fields of where there's no people or anything going on. So like, what's a shot look like from up in the fields down on the children that are all playing, showing them in the scale of, you know, how many there are from above? What is it? What are these huts and homes out here? Are these places where the gypsy children live? Is it a good idea to visit those homes while the children have the violin during that time and photograph them inside the home with the violin? Is it a good idea to photograph them with their family with the violin? There is just so much element that you can add to this to create a really compelling documentary body of work. And part of it, I think, to do with revisiting. So if they still do this, can you revisit again? Can you take some of what we've talked about and make new images that are outside of just a lot of these head-on shots of the children, which is there's, you know, 5 of them here, right? And add those extra elements and then see what, you know, when we have like meat and potatoes and all of this stuff, think about it as a movie. You know, if we're thinking about a movie has an opening scene, right? It has a closing scene. It has elements within the middle of the movie that are completely different scenes, and a lot of this seems like the same scene happening over and over again, and we just need different scenes to create that full body of work.
Right, right. Well, and I think a good example, if you want to click on, go look at the artist's profile.
Let's do that.
There's another set of there's a different collection that's called Istanbul Musicians,
Mm-hmm.
and this is exactly what we're talking about.
It is perfect. So let's take a look at this. I love this new little grid mode.
So, in other words, you already know how to do this.
Yeah.
And I would say some of these are really great. It's great that they're all different angles. What I would think might even be more powerful would be like, okay, so a good one is number 3, which is the one with the baritones, the 3
Are you
baritone.
looking at it according to oldest? Are you looking at it, or are you looking at my screen?
Number 4, it's the 4th one.
Are you looking at my screen? Or looking at your
It's
own. All right, I'm gonna go oldest, and then
Yeah.
the fourth one on the oldest. Okay.
Yeah. So like for me, for instance, this one, I feel like this um maybe a slightly different angle. Oh yeah, no, it's number 3. I'm sorry.
Okay,
being,
then
I'm
the
being a bum.
number. No,
No,
it's okay.
number,
Is then. Hold on a second here. You're talking about in the title it says number 3.
yeah. It's the
Okay,
first.
here we go. The Trump.
This,
I think those. I don't know. I'm not gonna say they're trumpets. This.
they're baritones of some sort, I think.
Yeah, sax, trumpet. There's so many different ones. I don't tubas. I don't know what all the different sizes, James.
Yeah, I think like this one, just for an example, would be really, it's an interesting portrait of the guy on the far left. And I
Mhm.
if it were not as wide angle of a shot, but if you just had that one guy and then there were 2 more horns kind of with the faces not visible behind it, it might even be more interesting. So move more to the left hand of the frame
Agreed.
would make for a more interesting photo where it gives context that he's not by himself, but it's focused on him.
Like this shot, like musicians number 4, has that element I think that you're talking about, where it's like focused on him, but we
Yeah,
have some environment as well.
yeah. But I like this. And I just think that this
Yeah.
is good. And this is where kind of this is where we're pushing with the other, with the other one. This gives you way more context for what's going on.
So many different perspectives,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so many different characters, as well. And they've got all the properties and stuff in here. I mean, it's probably a newer collection too, right? This was minted 9 months ago, actually. It's not, um, but yeah. Yeah, so they clearly know how to do make a compelling a body of work in documentary style by creating those different perspectives. So I think that's the best feedback for the child musicians collection. And if we go back to the child musician collection, I just want to see if there's sales on that collection. Um, because if it's not and it's been sitting for a long time, it might be best to either just burn the collection, or or let's see. Well, they're not listed, right? So let's see activity. Yeah, so there's been no sales, offers, transfers, or anything yet. And so rather than having out so many bodies of work that also say that they, show that they've been around for, you know, uh, 5 months, 9 months, whatever it is, it might be best to on OpenSea, it's free, to like remove this collection. And if you really like this body of work, to reconstructure it in a way that's more compelling, and then remarket it again, and tell the story about it again. But I don't think it's a best idea to just have collections sitting non-listed. It sort of looks like it's just been forgotten about, and you've moved on to creating new things. That's my best advice.
I'm feeling too. I just feel like it's not an example of your strongest work. And as much as it seems like an interesting story, there's something about it that's not hitting for me. And I feel like it's the story. Like there's something missing from the story. So, or the story's not being told well. That's kind of what I'm saying. And I know that sounds like it's a little harsh, maybe, but I want to give good feedback.
Yeah. No, it is a good feedback, and it's constructive. I wouldn't say that it's harsh. And my advice too would be like, go out and pick up some books from documentary photographers who have done just really well before this space or any of this. Like, people who've shot for Magnum, Nat Geo, stuff like that, who've put together bodies of work, and just look through the pages and feel the emotion in the images, and look through the pages and see all the different perspectives that they created to create the body work. A lot of these people took 5-10 years to create those bodies of work. And that's the thing too, is documentary sometimes takes a long time, and it sometimes takes a lot of revisiting to actually make something that's just really, really powerful. So with that being said, yeah, let's move on to the next collection.
I'll throw one thing out there. This,
Yeah.
this could be even easier than even buying books. I know that just go pick up a Nat Geo, go pick up a National Geographic, or go to National Geographic, their website, and go look at their stories and look at the photography. We talk about Nat Geo for a reason. It's because they are super interesting documentary. It's super interesting documentary work. That's what they do.
Yeah, and the editors are the photo editors, the ones that are most likely picking the images that they're using for the public stories that they use in that, and pay attention to how they're not going to pick 4 or 5 images that are head-on shots. For the most part, they're going to pick a variety of different perspective images that put a full story together.
Exactly.
So it's great advice. Cool. So next question is one we have here on object. This is Traveling Cities. This is by the NFT Jungle. And it says, this drop is a snapshot of the cities we've been immersed in, cities in vast places. And we did our best to be intentional in each frame and to share that light. Pausing binds mindfulness. Traveling Cities is an attempt to capture this. And so this is not the best way to look at it. And so we will go to, we click on the NFT call here, and we can go to collections and click on that specific collection, Traveling City. And then, oh, no, I didn't have to do all that. I could just say view all here. I'm still getting used to Tezos. And it's best to click this drop, this one here, and we can look at it big like this. And so as I look at it from afar, there's a couple of shots that stand out to me, and I think it's the ones where they're closer to the subject. And so I'll take this shot, for instance, Bostonian Reflections. And this is the nice thing about objects. Look, I could just click this, images open, see. It's really nice. Has a Sloika feel aspect a little bit. And so this is beautiful. The reflections are gorgeous. You have a story here. You have a man in a kayak. All the reflections are just really gorgeous. You have the yellow boat just stands out within this as well. The mood is really great, right? And so we go back. Another one for me is like this one that's taken here in Brooklyn, right? Where we have the this is the Manhattan Bridge actually. We have the Manhattan Bridge, and we have this full on the cityscape here, and you have cars coming across, and you have full. If I go back though, there's some images like this one, for instance, Manhattan Money Shot. I don't know that this is the money shot compared to that Brooklyn shot, right? It's just really far away from me, and maybe at sunset or something with a completely lit up sky and colors and stuff like that, and reflected sunset on the water. Something like this for me could have worked better. Same thing for me with a shot like this, it's Cali sunset. I just feel like it's just you have a lot of black shadows down here, and I'm trying to figure out the subject, and subject to me obviously is this Ferris wheel in the background, but it just seemed far from the subject to create what they created in the other 2 images. And then I'll say one last thing before I pass off to Dan is that then this image here feels a little out of place to me. Out of place in the sense that it's like about this eyeball, but then the editing, it doesn't feel like a real depth of field to me. This is looks like a filter that's created a depth of field in this shot. And Dan, do you have any words on that, since you have more technical expertise as far as editing and also shooting this type of work than I do?
Well, so I think I'm right there with you. I think that there are some really beautiful shots here. There's a couple of them that just don't hit for me. Golden Gate, which is the black and white on the bottom, the long panorama. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Hmm.
the foreground does nothing for me. Um,
Hmm.
and I feel like this could be really cool. It's just kind of a weird foreground. And it's shot all super wide, so it kind of everything feels a little distorted. Um, it
Yeah,
just
and so there's a lot of classic cars and stuff too that actually run through this area. I did a whole series on classic cars outside in Alameda, and had this been just like, maybe it's a patience team, right? That had this been, a car from the 1980s or something coming through, and we didn't have this newer car here or something, and it could have add that character, and if the frame doesn't, I don't know if the frame is straight or not. Maybe it is actually straight. The horizon looks straight, but something feels a little tilted to me. Maybe it's the highway.
yeah.
um yeah, then I think that it has it. But the truck with the direct on it, it just like, even the wording direct, it doesn't. If the truck had a wording on it that lended to a story that was about this image, that could make sense.
Right.
But I agree with you in the fact that the foreground doesn't really, and it's another image where it's like it's far from the subject, right? And it's okay that this image is far from the subject, but the foreground has to sort of tell the theme, or add to that element back here in that story, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing with the Manhattan money shot. Is it just doesn't, the city is this is supposed to be about cities, and this isn't a city. Like the whole foreground and the 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 city makes up, less than 10% of your image, and I feel like that, and it feels like it's yeah. I here's what this would be a really cool shot if it were like sunset and those clouds were lit up, right? And even then, I would probably crop out half that water at the bottom. But
Well,
to me, you've got such great, new meets old, Sleepy City, the Windy City. All of these are focused on the city. This is something about this doesn't feels like the weight is wrong. Um,
yeah, and that's why I mentioned sunset like you did too, because then those elements that feel like they take up so much of the frame would have would be visually more dramatic with different colors, and that sunset would lend reflection to the water. And even if maybe you had some, a sailboat over here or something, like it just, the
yeah.
frame needs more than just that city that takes up such a small portion of it. And like this shot too, new meets old. It's just, you're lacking foreground here. I think this is, and if you wanted it to be about desolation, that's different, or isolation or whatnot. But even in that case, it would still be hard for me to grab something from that. Um, yeah, a lot of people do take shots like this shot, right? And I think the successful ones usually have an element, a subject to it,
Yeah.
right? Like a subject walking that path or something.
I was just gonna say, if you had somebody walking across the street there, it'd be totally different.
Yeah, it'd be a
Um,
completely different photograph.
yeah. Yeah, the also so I think here for me what it is. Let me look back here. I want to go back to the collection description. Oh, let's see, I messed up there. Traveling cities. Okay, so this drop is a snapshot of the cities we've been immersed in. Cities are vast places. We did our best to be intentional in each frame and to share that light. Okay, so here's my, I guess where I'm struggling here a little bit is it feels like what we're looking at here. Let me click on view all and look at the images again. I feel like what I'm expecting is to drop in here and be seeing views of cities. And to me, Cali sunset doesn't really fit that. I know you're in a city, and yet I kind of want to see more cityscape.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the same thing with the Golden Gate. I don't see any what we would classically think of as city. I know it's in San Francisco, but what I'm seeing is like a pier and a parking lot and some buses and a building that doesn't really look like a city. Um, and so I think if you leaned more into that New York skyline with the bridge, the windy city, the sleepy city, the Bostonian reflections, like those, that classic skyline view makes sense. And then you mentioned Ion Dallas, and to me, when I look at Ion Dallas, it feels like maybe like um, it's either an artificial depth of field thing with a toy camera effect, or you could be using like a lens baby lens for this. And for me, it feels like you've said that cities is what you're focusing on here, but then you blurred out the cityscape and you're focused on this eye. And to me, it's doesn't really work.
My biggest advice with this photographer is like, so it seems like it has a good idea of like finding, it has an idea of like finding a scene that it wants to photograph, but then I think it's a waiting game. Like, I mean, like I think in this scene, you just have to be more patient. Like seeking out, so something to do as a street photographer is like, you can operate in two different ways, right? Like one, you can be kind of run and gun, which I do a lot. And there's another thing where you can find an environment first, like this environment right here. Interesting, right? But then you have to wait, right? You have to wait for life to start to happen within this environment to make a story out of this because this doesn't have a story.
Right.
It has lines and it has geometry and it has leading lines, and the leading lines lead into something that's just a bit too far away from me. But if those leading lines led into someone crossing the street, see a lot of people do this with umbrellas, see people do it in different ways. You figure out how to do it in your own way. But I just think that if you slowed down your process a little bit and found environments that you really like and then waited longer, like this is a clear example where you could have waited longer for something to pass by that was more compelling than this truck, right? With this like minivan or whatever is in this here. This shot is probably one of the better ones I think in the mix. Though it's a little saturated and edited for my taste. I mean, I think that it's a beautiful composition and it's a full show of like an entire city. And I love all the yellow. I love warm on cold tones like this too, and I love the stillness of the water. Yeah, they obviously shot this. Maybe I don't know. Let's say I thought they shot this at like a bit of a longer exposure, but I guess not because the cars aren't moving and the clouds aren't really moving. But that stillness in the water is really nice.
Yeah.
So let's look at like let's look more into like the details and stuff, right? Like okay, so additions, they're all additions of 3. So it's a really low addition priced at 5 tes. So your primary sales on this is going to be quite low if you sell 3 of these, right? You have to be able to you have to be able to gauge your audience too. Like I know the creator of this because he's very supportive in the community, but I don't think he has the reach, right? He has 51 followers, right? So when you have a very small reach, it's very hard to move um, you know this many uh, images probably at one time, and I don't know what else has minted on other platforms and such, but like I would just trim this down. Like I would trim this down to Bostonian reflections, where they spread love, this New York image, like the windy city, and that's probably it for me. I don't know, maybe Sleepy City. I don't know. Let me take a look at this. Yeah, I mean, I, I feel like if he was a bit more to the right and was like was let in with it led in with this line of the road, and the horizon wasn't as crooked as it is a crooked horizon, that this could be like a really good cityscape as well. It doesn't necessarily have like the detail and dynamism that Windy City does though for some reason. Like this how feels like it has like a more brightness to it, maybe because it's the time of day. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd probably cut it down to those and see.
Yeah.
So because no one's picked up anything on these. It's tough. One, it's a soft market, so I would just mint less. Like this is another shot, right? Sunny days, where it's like you found an interesting environment. There's just nothing happening in any of the road here, right? So
Right.
like just wait. Just hang out here. If you have to hang out for 20 minutes, if you have to hang out for 40 minutes, just hang out. Someone, a couple is going to walk by holding hands. Someone's going to walk by with an interesting hat. Something can happen, and that's just the difference between being patient and being not. So maybe find your scene first and then wait for something to happen. This will be my
Right.
best advice on these.
I totally agree, and I have found that I think this is something to think about is that street photography in general is uh, it's mostly about people, and so you have to kind of figure out if you're going to be if your photos are about the architecture, then focus on the architecture, focus on the buildings, focus on that the shapes. If your images are about people, then focus on the people and let the shapes frame your subjects. A few of these, you've just got a lot of open space where it feels like you've set up images that are ready for something to be in the foreground, and then there's just nothing there. So I think that's a big thing to look at is figure out which ones are strong in terms of really showing off a sense of place, and then lean into that because I think that's kind of what you're trying to focus on. Um, but yeah,
Absolutely. Perfect. And we have one more collection left.
okay.
Actually, it's just a single image. So this is When the Chips Fly, and this is by Ramazan Sirakoglu.
Okay, so I'm
And
going to say something right off the bat. You and I have already reviewed this image.
yeah, okay.
Haven't we?
We might have, yeah. I mean, I know I've seen this image and talked about it before, but I review so many things that sometimes I don't know whether or not it was in a Twitter chat space or it was on here, and it might have just been. And this was submitted this week,
Okay.
and we do have Boss Mom out right now because she's on maternity leave, and she does handle a lot of the Excel spreadsheets, so maybe it did pop up back in this, but I'm
Oh,
okay to talk about it again. It's fine. What's the
no
eyes
worries.
on it?
Okay, so it was minted 4 months ago. So it's been within the last 4 months that we've looked at it. Um, so what we're looking at is that it's a edition with 20 total. There's 5 owners. So at this point, 4 have sold. There's a pretty lengthy description here of what's going on, and when you look at the list of owners, I mean this is no joke, right? You've got Leslie Spurlock, H Chip.
Chip.
Yeah, I mean these are well-known artists. Naiju Visuals is somebody I recognized from the space here. I think I said this before. I think this is a really interesting. It's a really interesting shot. And I feel like when I look at how it fits into, um, you know, just forget about we like this image. We already talked about it last time. It's really well composed. It has beautiful light. Um, it's telling an interesting story. Go click into his profile because this is somebody we know. We've already seen a ton of his work. It's really good. He knows what he's
Yeah,
doing. Light, he understands light,
yeah.
and that ultimately what this comes down to. I'd be curious what the question is and why this edition hasn't done better.
I think I
Um,
know why.
okay.
I think this is a good. Before we even dive into this, I think this into his work. I think this is a good discussion about like what Tezos is doing to the market, right? Right. So, um, in addition on here, so this at 0.02, which seems extremely cheap, right? Is 25.59 for an edition of 20, right? But there are people minting similar work on Tezos um, for an edition of 20 like this, and they're minting it for like 3 Tez, which is more like $5, right? So when you think about that, it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So for 5x the cost, you could go on Tezos and purchase an image with the same amount of additions. And you still own it on the blockchain. It's not on the ETH side. Outside of that, you pay no gas fee. The gas fee you pay is like 14 cents. You
Yeah.
might pay a fee on this of, between $5 and $15. So now you're talking about you're paying 7 times more for this than you are on Tezos. So this is a whole nother conversation about like is what Tezos is doing to the market, and there's something to be said about it's doing something good because there's artists collecting from artists because they can afford to collect from artists. There's something to be said that's bad because not everything is black and white, because there's something that it's doing where artists are listing their work for really low prices to sell out those editions. But the problem is, if they don't sell out those editions, if they don't sell out 20 editions at $5 per edition, and it sits on primary, there's no magic to really happen on secondary. So what can happen then there, right? We have to look at the long-term trajectory, right? So then in that case, let's say they want to get on super rare. Let's say they want to mint pieces on foundation for 1 ETH or so. Let's say they've been building up to sell pieces for 1 ETH and they sold their last piece at 0.8. And now they have a link tree that has Tezos, and collectors could just look back in their history and they could just go to Tezos and they say, why would I buy a piece on foundation of theirs for 1 ETH when I can get a edition of theirs for $5? That's an edition of 10 or an edition of 20, or in some cases, we just looked at a collection that has an edition of 3 at 5 Tez, which is like about what, probably $8. So that is my sort of tug of war with Object and the Tezos platform right now. That as I consider myself to be established in this space, especially on the ETH side, that if I go over to Tezos and I play around in that realm with this artist trade to artist side, is it going to affect my ability to be able to sell on ETH for a value that I think that I'm worth, right? And collectors definitely look at these things, and there'll be tons of people in the space that will tell you, oh, artists should be allowed to do whatever they want. And of course, they should be allowed to do whatever they want. It doesn't mean that there's not ramifications for the things that they do. And so, like, that's probably why he's having a hard time selling 20 of these, right? And I just think that that's the truth. I think that a lot of people moved over to the Tezos side during a time of a soft market. And I think Tezos has blew up with an audience that is a lot of artists collecting from artists, where you can get a lot of compelling work for a really cheap price. But what happens down the line? I don't know what happens down the line. No one knows what happens down the line, not just with the trajectory of that artist, but also with the trajectory of ETH itself. So the ETH merge did well, as far as I know. Scalability will become better. The cost of gas on ETH in the future. Let's look down the line. Let's look years down the line. Years down the line, when Ethereum is very scalable and the cost of transaction, I don't know if it could get as low as Tez, but it gets to a point where there's a bull market again and the ETH side is flying, and could Object render obsolete as new platforms come into existence if Ethereum becomes an ultra juggernaut within the space, not just as a super secure platform, but a platform that could scale, a platform that has a very low cost to transact. These are a lot of things that I think about when I'm deciding, what I'm going to put on a platform, why I'm going to put it on a platform, and how it could affect the things that I have on other platforms.
Yeah. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I've heard people say the same thing. Oh no, selling your work for cheap on Tez is That's like what happened to the stock, to the stock photography market. And I think that each artist needs to decide for themselves if there's work that they want to try to sell at a lower price point for a different audience. But they also have to be mindful of what it does. And in this case, I think what's happening is that you're right. If you're going to, and maybe this is, let me step back a little bit here. If you're going to try to sell an edition for 0.02 on Ethereum, yes, you need to be mindful that other people are selling work for a lot cheaper somewhere else, and that's a thing. But also, you have to maybe be okay with it. Be okay with selling it at this price point because this isn't the same work you're selling for higher price elsewhere, and especially maybe figure out how to delineate between those two. That's where I think, okay, the work that I have on Tezos is, while I'm proud of it, it's not the same as the work that I'm trying to list for 0.5 ETH on,
Makes sense. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's for you to just figure that out, and to also just be aware of what other people are doing. What's the quality of work. And here's a good example. In my Tezos wallet, I own an edition of that was some of Leslie Spurlock's work. It's a piece that I kind of kicked myself because I waited and bought 2 copies of the edition on Tezos, but I was really close to pulling the trigger of buying it on ETH and having the only copy. And I feel like it would have been more valuable to me having the one.
Is it the fire? Was it the George Floyd protest?
No, it's not. It's called Black Hat.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see if there's a way for me to. I not to say anything bad about Leslie. Like I was kind of waiting. She said, I'm going to burn this and I'm going to put it on Tezos, and I was like, do I want to buy it before she burns it? And I didn't, and I should have, because
that's up to her, right? Yeah. And
but
it's
I would have, it would have lived in my collection, and I would have been super happy about it. And I should have just bought it, and
what is the edition of it on Tesla?
There's 45.
So 45 people own it now when you could have been the only one to own it. Is what you're saying. Yeah, makes sense. And so
I think in some ways that's a classic example for me of, she was happy because she sold it. The editions that she sold ended up equaling about what she was trying to get. That was what her reserve was on Foundation. I think it was close to that. And I think it's done pretty well on secondary. But it's one of those things where I think you have to kind of really work through, what does this look like? What are you going to do? What work gets shared where? And Leslie was able to bring it over to, because she's built up this huge audience on.
That's the thing right there. It's the audience. It's understanding your threshold, right?
Yeah.
And what you can do and pull off.
Yeah. Whereas for me, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll put one of my pieces up there, and I listed a bunch of editions, and it didn't really sell that well. And so while I priced it so that when it sells out, I will have made the equivalent money to what I would sell it for on Ethereum, it hasn't sold because I don't have the audience over on
an object. Yeah. There's a huge audience over there, so you can develop that audience and get for sure. But yeah, it's been a huge struggle of mine to just think about, like, geez, if I was to put an edition on here, like, how many editions would it be? What would it be priced at? What would I want my primary sellout to be? And then there's people that have told me, well, you can't worry as much about the primary sellout on here because a lot of magic happens on the secondary. So if you think about it that way, then you need to be able to gauge your audience and understand and know that these are going to be able to sell out. And can you sell out an edition of 100? Can you sell out an edition of 40? If you but then if the lower you get with the edition, it's like the higher you have to price it to get something out of primary. But then there's other people pricing it very low with low editions, not selling, or there's people that are pricing it very low with low editions, selling out, and then people are relisting 3x, 5x, 10x, 30x higher. Um, so it's all about knowing like what your audience is and like what you could pull off potentially. And it's always a risk, you know, but there's ways around it too. You could burn some of those images if you don't, like, let's say you minted one at 40 or 35, I don't know what it is. If it doesn't move along, I think there's a way to, I would talk to Sonny, he's very intelligent about like finding ways to burn the images on there that you already have and stuff. Or maybe it's easier than that. I don't know, but I know there's ways around that
Yeah.
burning additions that you could do.
Yeah. Well, and I'll throw this out there. So you popped over there and you picked a couple of mine up, and one of them was follow the curves. Well, I have a strategy for that one that every time five of them sell, the price goes up. And so
Yep.
once you bought that one, you bought the 10th one. And so I just relisted. I added a bunch more. I added the next five. The next five are seven Tez, and the next five after that are 10.
Really smart because it's incentive for me. I didn't even know that when I bought it. I just bought it because I
Right.
liked it. But that's incentive for me now because like it just went up, right? So like
Yeah.
whether it's whether it got it for $8 or whatever. Now the next person that sells it on Tez is it's like $15 or something, right? And then that's going to go up when 10 more buy, and that's kind of like the beauty of object if you know the game and you know how to understand it. And that's why I've been studying it for 3 weeks so I could at least talk about it. Like as someone who's like influential in the space and tries to educate people about things, like I was like, I have to jump in here at least. And so, I jumped in and analyzed what people were doing. I started following photographers and then thinking to myself, like, which photographers are doing this right? And in my opinion, and moving stuff and have interesting tactics like the one you just talked about, which I've seen before, where it's like you list a certain amount, those sell out, the next amount sell at a higher price, people buy those, and it raises your floor organically over time, and then in the secondary it could even raise even more.
Right.
So
Right.
so there's a lot to think about. Right?
Yeah. And I think we got on this because we're talking about what our artist has done with this. This is it's tricky to figure out, like, why isn't this selling? Well, um, I think that it's a beautiful photo, and you just have to realize there is this is a certain kind of work, and this type of work is also being sold a lot on Tez, and um, I'm not saying your work isn't great and it's not beautiful, because it is. It's just that you have to remember that sometimes your work is competing with other work, and if the other work is being sold for a lot cheaper somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. This photographer is awesome.
Yeah.
I talk to him all the time. Um, Man, OpenSea is just a mess today. But yeah, this reflection shot is crazy.
He fixed all of their high res previews were gone for a little while there, and I kind of lit them up, and then they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we made a mistake," and then they fixed it, but now nothing will load. None of the previews will load.
Yeah, exactly. And this one's sold out. Like Alpha bought two of these, Sunny bought two of these. But I also think that this was listed at a different time. This was listed 4 months ago, right? This is
Yep.
this is before, like, Tez and the object was still going on, but like the whole community hadn't moved over yet. Like not everyone has moved over, but like when I say move over, people still collect on both sides, but there's a lot of collecting between artists that's happening with the project.
Right.
But I think there's also a lot of things to think about when listing your stuff there, what you're going to list there, how that can affect you on other platforms, how can it affect the long-term trajectory of your mission as an artist and stuff like that. So just to tread waters like lightly
Yeah.
and study and analyze and come up with things like what you've come up with, like the layered pricing is a great idea.
Exactly.
With that said, I think we touched on a lot. I think this was a really, really great session where we dove deep into the other works that artists had. And, we really got into some discussion about, different platforms and, how to use those platforms, how to curate, descriptions and all the stuff. But yeah, really fantastic. And thanks for all you brought today, Dan, because it's like really, really valuable and sure will help a lot of people.
Cool, man. I'm glad I can help. It's these kind of conversations are really fun. It's almost like you and I are just kind of spitballing on what works and how how the market works, and
Yeah.
we get to use these as examples of how that works, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. And it's
And
hard in an ever-changing market that's moved so quickly to talk about this.
yeah,
We have to keep up to with what's going on.
yeah.
Right?
One, and I'm kind of it's fun for me. I found a piece I liked while we were in here, so that was kind of fun
Same.
too.
Cool. Well, I mean, I think that about wraps it up then. Awesome session. And, we have some viewers here I'm looking at, but I think a lot more people. Did I wait? I think I have one more. Did I have one more collection that I had to look at? Hold on
I
a
think
second. Um, I think it's a viewer in here actually. Well, Mo Ruffy.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, I'm glad that I just picked up on that.
Let's take a look at it.
Um, yeah, yeah. It's one piece. So, um, and I must have exited out of it by accident when I was going through, um, all these tabs. So let me just go to announcements, and yeah, this is the collection here, where this is on object life. And sorry about that.
Well, and I
Um,
apologize too. There, just so you know, it's a lot of juggling tabs on our side. So
yeah. All right, so life, my Mo Ruffy. How do you, and the image is Ray of Hope. So how do you see life? How do people see life? Life is beautiful. Life is dark. Life offers good and bad in both good and bad times. But always remember never to give up. I will show you life from various perspectives. Mo Ruffy. First of all, let's click on his profile here. So he's created 1, 2, 3, 5 images. Let's see how many collections. So Lagos Hustle has 3. I think he specifically put 4 for this one here. So let's take it out. So it says recently listed, recently sold. Sold one of them. Let's see. Okay, so this is Ray of Hope. He did sell one to the Black Chain, and take a look at this image here. Open this up. The sun is shining into my house right now. It's like cool. So you have yeah, you have this subject appears to be like a boy, and he's like looking into what appears to be like a glowing lamp or so. And I really love the expression on it. I just don't know that there is enough happening in the image, or like an idea of what this ray is here. I would love to know. Read this. When life seems to take a bad turn, you tend to be depressed and drawn into the darkness, but there's always a little ray of hope that shines down. So grab that little ray of hope and get back up. Never let the darkness take over. I'm trying to move my laptop right now, or close my blinds, because it's like blocking the whole image for me. Dan, if you want to talk for a minute.
yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, obviously, this is a super interesting. Whenever you get a chance to say, okay, here's a light source, and it's making very very dramatic color. That's pretty cool, especially because like I'm looking at it on my screen, and when you look at this on a black background, the it is full on black, the whole entire background of the image. Um, so it's interesting how you've got just this, only the part of his face that's lit up is is visible, and I really like that. Um, here's what I, as a viewer, I kind of feel like there's almost too much black on the left hand side, and I would love just a little more context to know what this light source is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I wish that I could move the frame over. I wish I could could move it a little bit to the right and see what's there.
Yeah, I
Mm.
close my blinds and then I put it against the gray background, and it's definitely easier to see that now the sun's not shining on my laptop, and that's against that black background. It was hard to differentiate what was part of the photo and what was not.
Yeah.
And so looking at it gray here, but I agree with you on the fact that like if the image was more to the left and we knew what that light source was about. I mean, it's a big source, right? It's a big source of orange light without much context, right? And so if it was just a ray of light coming down and illuminating a space, I think that I would be more drawn to the actual subject in this image, where it's a pull back and forth between me looking at the subject's face and moving back over to this sort of abstract object that I can't really make of, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I kind of just want to know what it is. Like that, I think that's kind of what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the sentiment in the description is good. You know, I, I, I
Yeah,
I like
let's
it.
take a look. Let's take a look at what they have like listed on here, right? Because they have some other stuff, right? This popped out to me. Work. That's a really interesting composition. You know, like the editing is a little bit, like I understand, like we have the green pop and we have a nice sky here and stuff, but I feel like half of the image almost down here was like desaturated. You see, does it have any? There's owners on this one too. But yeah, no, I mean, I love the composition and the story in this image. 20 editions at 1.5 is two sales on that. Goes back to like knowing like how many you'll be able to sell out. You got a one of one listed at 100 Tez. Talking drum, interesting shot.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I would, it's mobile photographer as well. So creating this on an iPhone and such. I mean, I would just honestly at this point keep creating. Like I want to see more work from you. Like I think the idea that you have with this ray of hope, the description plus even the image and the expression is really good. I just think that there's compositional things that you should work on here. And I mean, I'm sure you didn't just take one photo of this boy or girl in the light, and I'd love to see different angles and perspectives of what you've created with this, and play around with more of these low light sources to create images.
Yep. I agree. I agree. That's ultimately what I'm looking at here. Is I just don't see that there's a lot of work, and so I would say make more. You're
Yeah.
selling these so low priced. Make more. Put more out there and see what sticks. Like this is one of the things that's weird is we were talking earlier about the idea of, oh, don't too much work out or be careful about what you put out. I think when you're first getting started, I see such a broad range of subjects and styles here that I don't really know what's you yet. And I would say put more out there and see what happens, and maybe even do them as little additions. Just do like 10 of them and see what happens.
Yeah, like shoot and shoot and shoot until you find like this identity and style as a photographer, because there's
Yeah,
all the shots that you have listed are different genres or different editing, and I think it's good to find a place where your editing is consistent and your storytelling is consistent, and you could see the work and say, that's a Mo Ruffy. I know that is because that's the way he captures life. You know,
exactly. Very
cool.
cool.
Well, but yeah, well, yeah. I guess then that ends that's the last one. I'm really glad that I didn't miss that.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
clicked it on the tab, and I was like, then I opened up the Discord and saw the artist in there, and I was like, oh, I remember that there is another piece. Um, cool, Goon. Is there any co-op today or anything? Or are you here?
Yeah, I got a POAP. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, thank you for the POAPs. Cool. So yeah, awesome session. It's recorded. A lot of amazing things were touched upon during this. So we went on for 3 hours. I hope people will come and listen to this, especially get some insight on Tezos versus each side, and the positives and negatives of that and stuff. And And yeah, really great session. Thanks again, Dan, and MetaJungle for giving us the space to educate people today.
Thank you guys. It was a great session, and we'll get it uploaded to YouTube as soon as we can.
And
All
which
right.
chat are you putting it in, Goon?
What was that?
Which chat are you putting it in?
The
one that's
the
officially
feedback channel.
There it
Oh,
is.
Feedback AMA.
Yeah, feedback AMA. There's a little open chat bubble. You click that, and like artists can talk in that channel while we're while we're talking about the work. And
Cool.
that's where the POAPs are. Cool, guys. Thank you everybody who attended, and yeah, we'll look to see you on the next one, which is probably next Thursday or Friday.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye bye.